odds favor Ali in this fight, 6-5, if you can imagine. If ever there was a chance to make a score, you had to run to Las Vegas, which I did with my friend, and every time we could put together and put it all on Larry Holmes. Is that like taking the Saudi blood money, though, Lubie? You had to watch one of your idols all time just take an unbelievably ugly beating, and you're yelling in the corner because you have money on it. Come on, Larry! Knock him out! Money is at the root of all evil, especially when it comes to. Imagine it. You're rooting for Ali to get. I mean, well, you were just screaming, "Step in and stop it, ref! It's a killing."
Right, you weren't saying that. You were saying, "Knock his old ass out."
Nah, we didn't need that. That was the biggest gimme I've ever seen in my lifetime, right? And it's always good to be right in those situations.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody, on this fine Wednesday. It's the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest and one Mike Lubie Lubitz. And while it's good to be right in those situations, more often than not, we are dead wrong in those spots because what looked like somewhat of a sure thing to me, I don't know about the point spread, but in terms of just straight up action, I'm not inclined to lay 2-1 on a straight up money line proposition in situations like this. But if ever I could leave you, if ever I was inclined to go ahead and take a shot on a team that I thought couldn't lose on a straight up proposition, it would have been the Miami Heat last night, which I saw them winning in a blowout. I shrugged off your usual negativity, your skepticism, your pessimism, Lubie. I just went right through it and thought magic wand theory, one of your other lame theories, was more than applicable here.
Right. It was right.
Where you just wave a magic wand. They either played like shit all year in terms of their usual standard. But, being the seventh seed in the play-in tournament wasn't exactly what you would picture for the Miami Heat going into the year, especially since they were like an eyelash away from going to the NBA Finals a year ago with essentially the same crew.
Yes.
And yet they've done something. We talked about it a bit on the show yesterday that I find remarkable. And I don't know that you will see this too often. I'm sure there are other examples of it where, like, a baseball team had an outstanding starting rotation, came back with the same five guys, and guys that were lights out that had ERAs all under 3. All of a sudden, it looked like a blood pressure reading when you looked at the earned run average and just reversed form, or they had injuries or whatever. But essentially, they kept Ian Eagle was doing a game last night, which was great on TNT.
I'll try and get him on.
Very refreshing. To have Ian Eagle on the call. We love Eric Reed, but Ian Eagle is our man, as much as Eric is. And when you get a national perspective, it's always a little bit different than getting the home team version. Even though John Crotty and Eric Reed are outstanding, I think they do a great job, and they always are on point in terms of their facts and figures. I'm not sure. I mean, look, you would have to figure that there's always going to be at least a slight slant for the home team from the home team announcers.
Yeah, there is.
Their information is going to be more positive concerning the players, and they're not inclined to just call Duncan Robinson a schlep, which I don't know that Ian Eagle did. But how do you go from being among the were they the best 3-point shooting team in the league last year?
Number one. They were literally number one.
Number one. And they're horrible this year, but that wasn't even their problem yesterday or last night. I mean, just a listless, lifeless, lackluster. Any word that begins with an L that leads you in the direction of loser.
Yep.
Is the way they performed last night. This is the ultimate sports cliche, which has zero meaning. Well, you know what? They wanted it more. And it did seem like the Atlanta Hawks were playing with kind of a, here's another L word, laissez-faire type of attitude. Like, okay, let's just let it rip.
Yep.
A very efficient game by Trae Young's standards, even though Trae Young, the shots that he missed were gargantuan chucks from the logo, as referenced by Ian Eagle during the game. Logo bound. And, he's shooting a couple from half court there. A couple were in situations where he just had to hoist one where the shot clock was running out and he ended up with the ball. But very efficient game. He was 8 for 18. I think he had 25 points, close to 10 assists. It might have been 9. somewhere in there, and actually grabbed a few rebounds as well for the smallest guy on the court. And for a guy who was being talked about as trade bait. And then what was the other contention that was being made, levied by the Hawks management? Brilliant strategy by the Hawks management to go ahead and say, oh, we don't want this guy around, to tell you the truth. And this was all going on before the game. He was questioned about it after the game. He seemed to just let it roll off his back. And the Miami Heat making really no effort whatsoever, especially in the first half until very late in the second quarter, when they cut what was a 24-point deficit down to 15 with a 9-0 run. And then they did kind of spurt out early in the third quarter. They got the lead down to, I think, 6 in the third quarter, all the way down to 5 in the fourth quarter. And yet Atlanta seemed to come up with the answers. And the answer was crash the boards.
Okay, yeah.
Which the Heat, I mean, this looked like a border in Texas, did it not? Okay, everybody in. They were handing out green cards at the gate. It was unbelievable. As they got out-rebounded, blasted on the board, 63-29, 26-6 on the offensive glass. They mentioned this, I read it somewhere, without rebounds, there is no ring. Is that a Pat Rileyism? Where'd that come from? Somebody
rebound. Like, that's the funny thing is, because even if you have a good defensive possession, if you don't get the rebound, it's a total waste of time.
Yeah.
Like, and these are NBA teams, like we talked about. As much as we think Udonis Haslem sucks, if you let Udonis Haslem go play and be free, even at this age, he can get you 24. Like,
sure.
They're NBA players. If you give them, no matter what the team is, 2 and 3 opportunities to score, more times than not, they're gonna score.
Oh, that was sick. What was happening on the glass in this game? Because you'd have to think that at some point Eric Spoelstra in one of the huddles said, like Jim Larinaga was talking about, when it looked like they were going to get blasted on the boards in their game against Texas. And he said, look, I want everybody in the paint. Was it Houston or Texas? One of those two teams that they played. Because he was telling a story about how all of his players got stuck in the elevator. And this was prior to the game. And when they got out after a half hour being stuck in the elevator, he said, that's exactly the one I want. I want you guys that close together in the paint. Let them beat us from the outside. Which would have been, I think, a lot more difficult, obviously, for the Atlanta Hawks to navigate. But the Heat, if it wasn't for Kyle Lowry, they get blown out even worse in this ball game. I couldn't believe how little effort they put in the first half. And even when they made the runs, it just never seemed that you were inspired and instilled with confidence that the Heat were going to somehow, as a lot of NBA teams do that fall well behind, like the Lakers did last night at home, that they would find a way to get over the proverbial hump and win the game. So they took one on the chin, and now it boils down to this to make the postseason. But with a team that was, as we said, like one shot away from making the NBA Finals last year and knocking off the Boston Celtics in the process, they now find themselves in a spot where, as you said, Lubie, very interesting. They were 1-6 in the regular season combined against both the Chicago Bulls and the Toronto Raptors. And I would think the Raptors favored by 5.5 tonight have the Bulls at home. Raptors playing very well in spots, especially at the end of the season. Supposedly Nick Nurse, you were implying that Nick Nurse was in trouble there and might have his contract in the shredder. Is this holy at Ogeron? What are we talking about here?
A mutual party thing. Remember, they paid all these guys all this money.
Yeah.
And they were horrendous this year. The last month, they did the opposite of the Heat, where the Heat fell off a cliff after the All-Star break. They found their game, but there's been a lot of issues with them all season long. And I saw something yesterday where it was a couple of days ago that they're talking to Nick Nurse. They may go in another direction. They may not. I don't know. So we'll see.
I can't imagine. That guy, he impressed me. I mean, his first year there when he wins the championship, it was like, wow, this guy can flat out coach. Mike Mayo calling for the head of Eric Spoelstra, saying it's all his fault.
It is not Spoelstra.
I didn't realize he'd been coaching there 15 years. I mentioned this morning on Defo and 5, but I didn't. 15 years already?
Yeah.
Since he left the video room there, where literally, I mean, this guy was a guy that was following Nick Harrison, not Mickey, but Nick, his son, around filming his bar mitzvah. That was his job.
That wasn't his job.
And he would put together little videotapes that Pat Riley could look at and go, okay, yeah, I could see we got to block out. But other than that, I never realized it was like 15 years already, Eric Spoelstra.
I mean, he looks exhausted.
He was exasperated last night. He really was.
He would take. What's funny is you'd be like, "All right, take a timeout." So he'd take a timeout. They'd come back and then allow a 6-0 run. So they got
Well,
worse.
even late in the game, I mean, I know it was impossible. I mean, the mathematical permutations were not favorable to the Heat. They were down like 11 with a minute and change to go. But don't you still keep your head in the game? They threw in the towel fairly early in the final end game. Where normally you're at least fouling or trying or putting up some kind of a defensive front. Maybe pressing a little bit in the backcourt, but they just said, you know what, we don't have it tonight, and that's it. Crushed on the offensive glass. That was some serious ugliness there. Clint Capella, who I always find this guy an interesting player. He's one of those catalyst type of guys that box score numbers, except for the rebounding category, don't always look overwhelmingly impressive. Man, is he like a winning type of player? Clint Capella,
Hey,
21
6'10".
rebounds in the game last night.
He's 6'10".
6'10" he is. Okay, I didn't think he was that big.
He's like 6'10". He's big. He's taller than Bam, but he's not a big. He's soft. Like Bam should be able to eat him up, but Bam's a wuss. And I hate talking like that in 2023, but I didn't say he's a girl because girls most times are stronger than men.
Yeah, be careful where you go with this, Lubie.
I said he's a wuss, because he literally he gets manhandled. Who's Bay?
You sound like Paul Maurice talking to Ekblad.
Who's Bay?
I'd never heard of this guy, right?
He had 17. Johnson had 10 rebounds.
Yeah.
Or 7, I'm sorry, 7 rebounds. And Bam had 12 and 9.
And the Hawks had every reason to be horrible last night. Quinn Snyder took over, in February, late February. So they got Nate McMillan, a very respected coach, fired. The story was that they are among the most dysfunctional families and teams that you could find. They hate their superstar, Trae Young. We mentioned the Mayweathers. I don't even think that's a strong enough example. We may have to go with the Mansons on that in terms of, at least as the storylines go, the so-called narrative goes, they were supposed to be just in dire straits. The other players didn't even want to talk to Trae Young in the locker room. Trae Young is a subject. Who puts out, I mean, from their own front office? This wasn't, some kind of subversive activity on the part of Andy Ellisberg or Tim Donovan or Pat Riley or anybody associated with the Heat organization. This came from the Atlanta Hawks themselves. Yeah, we're listening, man. We'd love to dump this clown.
Yes, 100%. It came out that the Hawks are open to trading everyone. Everyone's on the table, and that really means Trae Young. And when that report came out, they didn't fight it. They didn't say it's wrong.
No, they were welcoming calls. They had him on eBay. What are you talking about?
They just have him.
You want this kid? Might need a hair transplant soon. I don't know. Did he have some plugs going up front there? What's up with Trae Young?
Weird hair.
Why am I obsessed with his hair?
Because
yesterday in the last couple of days here in South Florida, it's a bad day for a hairpiece, people.
Yes.
And it looks like it's going to be another one tonight. That wind was whipping. I did a little walk of life yesterday. I caught a little dry spell there. Got lucky. And but I mean, the wind was to the point where, I mean, you didn't want to be wearing a rug. That's for sure. If you were out there walking around, unless you had a cap that was glued to your head with Flex Seal. You might have needed to glue the whole thing down with Flex Seal, right? I mean, I was thinking Phil Swift the entire 4 miles. So not that this is a piece, but, because I've decided, I mean, just to let it go. Used to go with the hair dye and all of that stuff. You end up looking like a clown, really. Some of those pictures, of the past there when we were doing, the hair dye while I was working at 940 Winds, you're thinking, what was wrong with you, Deef? Lose some weight. Forget that donut. Lose some weight and leave the hair alone. Just go all gray. You may as well look like Bob Baffert. It's fantastic. All right, so an awful game. Kyle Lowry. I don't know if this is a good sign or not, but he woke up from the grave. This guy's been horrible.
To get that game from Kyle Lowry, like you should have coasted. Like if you're getting that game,
he was making
Kyle
everything.
Lowry,
I mean, threes. I mean, buckets going to the basket. He was fantastic.
He's actually playing decent defense too. He was one dude that actually sort of carried on defense. Like the Olay. I just kept hearing you say Olay defense, Red Sea. Like the first half.
Oh no, he's a huge advocate of the Red Sea. He's one of those guys that plays like I did, where you would faint like you were going to actually go for the ball, and then as soon as a guy drove by you, your man drove by you, you would immediately take off. That first step was already going towards the other basket.
That was Hero and Strus.
So you could put the arm up in the air and go here.
Hero and Strus. Strus literally did this on one play.
Yeah,
to allow a layup.
You're already at the midcourt stripe, looking for a pass. which that's the way the Heat played. They played a very very listless game all throughout, lackluster. Well, whatever word you can think of that means negative that starts with an L, it was applicable last night, and now they find themselves in a bit of a spot. That was probably the closest I watch a Heat game. Watch the Heat game all year,
Yes.
and you couldn't help but come away with I mean, if you were a Heat fan, with a feeling of just total emptiness and disgust.
Yes, that's actually how I felt because I don't see this. It's different in years past because you have expectations. So like when you have expectations and a team loses, that hurts. It didn't hurt because I don't have expectations. No matter who they played in the first round, unless it was the Cavs, they were going to lose.
Yeah, I didn't see them getting out of the first round, but
but
they could be a threat. I mean, because they do have some capabilities
well, I hate the Celtics.
on their best game.
It would be nice to have seen them push around the Celtics and have the Celtics have to work in the first round. Where they won't against the Hawks. The Celtics will beat the Hawks in like 5. They may sweep the Hawks. It's just different. Like they're a physical team. They get after it. And that's the only reason the Hawks beat the Heat last night. Was
Marcus Smart might, hit Trae Young in the jaw with a left hook sometime. He may treat him like, he was Julio Cesar Chavez looking at Meldrick Taylor in the 15th round.
So that was my thing. Like I wanted to see the Heat at least rough up the Celtics a little bit, make them have to work. And then the Celtics win in like 5 or 6. The Hawks, they're just going to push around. And Mayo's right. First of all, they're going to lose to the Raptors. But let's say, okay, they wake up for one game. Like Sarny says, they play every other game. Okay, so they beat the Raptors. They're going to get demolished by the Bucks. Like, I don't know if they're going to win a game against the Bucks.
Our good friend Harvey Fialkoff was saying that he thinks the Bucks are a more favorable matchup than the Celtics would have been.
He hasn't watched the
Miami
Bucks.
Heat. The Bam Adebayo thing is mysterious to me because I'm a fan of Bam Adebayo. I was happy when the Heat drafted him. I thought this was a very clever pick by Pat Riley, and that appeared to be the case in pretty much every season, except I guess 2 years ago in the playoffs when people started to find various suspect aspects to Bam Adebayo's, I think, mental approach on the offensive end of the floor, because this is a guy that's very capable of scoring. He does have a mid-range jump shot that can be efficient, especially from around the key area, and he's very capable inside. But what happens to this guy? Ron Rothstein was on with us not that long ago. I mean, about 3/4 of the way through the season. And remember, either you or I mentioned Bam Adebayo to him about the season he was having, and Ron Rothstein, isn't inclined to sugarcoating things. Just said this guy's growth has been immense. Exactly what the Heat had prescribed for him and hoped for throughout the season. And the guy was an all-star, and was having every bit of a legitimate all-star season, and looked like he had finally figured it out, as Mike Westhoff would say with the title of his book. And then, you were talking about how he was in La La Land, a veritable Night of the Living Dead type zombie. And he exhibited that same reluctance on the offensive end that really called his play into question when he was having a very bizarre, ineffective playoff series a couple of years ago. And, they would throw the ball into Bam Adebayo, and he would have a wide open shot opportunity. And instead, he would kind of putz around and not even look at the basket. And then end up throwing a ball out to Tyler Hero or somebody that was on the far outside of the perimeter. And you thought, wait a minute, you had the ball all the way down by the basket. You don't want it to be back out here at this point. Not when you have the capability. You got a guy that's 5'6" on you. You're being covered by Dellavedova, and you don't even bother, trying to take him to the basket and go in for an easy shot. Or as Bill Russell would have called it while he was alive, a high percentage shot, like a dunk. But very lacking in aggression last night, as evidenced by the walloping that the Heat suffered on the boards. 63-29 in total. You're out-rebounded by 34 rebounds in a game. 34, think about that. They out-rebounded by more than double the total of Heat rebounds in this ballgame. And it's not like, Atlanta was shooting lights out. I mean, they had plenty of misses. And managed to capitalize on the offensive glass to the tune of 26-6. Very inexplicable, man. Well, what do you think Pat Riley's doing right now? I mean, is he stewing over this? Well, he's not the type of guy that is sitting there going, "Oh, well, geez, you know what? I think we have a better chance against Milwaukee."
No, he's not happy. I mean, look, he's tried to bring in big name guys. I would rather them have really focused on getting a D'Angelo Russell and do whatever they could. Because the funny thing is, as much as they need a big name guy to win a title, smaller name guys could have gotten them to the second round. And it's just annoying that he was going for the big whale, the big fish. And
everybody points to this Donovan Mitchell thing, man.
Well,
with
they
the
got
Knicks and and also I guess the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler though had an uncharacteristically poor shooting night by his standards because
layups. He missed so many fucking layups. He missed like 6, and there'd be contact. But Jimmy Butler, contact doesn't stop him from making an and one or a layup. Like that's what he's great at is using his body and getting the basket.
yeah.
He was just bricking lay. It was like, oh my god, this is one
That,
of
that
those.
was somewhat inexplicable, though, that Jimmy Butler was missing so many point blank range shots because he's among the best in the league at converting, and that's how he gets the nickname Jimmy Buckets because he manufactures these baskets.
Yes.
And he did not last night. And even late in the game, when the Heat were at a juncture where they might have been able to make one final stand and, one final push, rather. I mean, they were trailing at the time, but he gets the ball down low with essentially, nobody on him. The guy that was defending him was in a very awkward position, could not have done anything about contesting a shot. And he hesitated for a second and then took it back out. Very, very uncharacteristic of Jimmy Butler to show those kind of reluctant instincts and not be able to convert at the basket. So I guess that was more than compensated for by the surprisingly good game by Kyle Lowry, who was hitting shots from the Coke machine, and virtually everything he put up was going through, including a wide barrage of 3-point shots that he made in a variety of circumstances, and just came through with clutch shot after clutch shot all night long. Tyler Hero wasn't half bad, but you get a mixed bag with Tyler Hero, do you not?
That's the funny thing is like Hero I thought sucked, and then you see he had 26 points. So someone's gonna say, well, he had 26 points. If you watch this game, it's like when Russell Westbrook, the third year, would have triple doubles. But you watch the game, you're like, yeah, he wasn't good. Like Hero, if you watch that game, there were large pockets where he was non-existent. He defensively maybe better, but he still is a sieve. And Strus, Martin, Vincent were useless.
Caleb Martin ended up getting hurt in the game, but he wasn't doing much of any value while he was playing healthy. And, supposedly they had Trae Young's number. I mean, we talked about that with Scoop Skolnick on the show the other day. And, there was some truth to that. If you looked at the stats, and Ian Eagle, who was doing the game on the TNT telecast, was pointing out that Trae Young had gargantuan struggles against the Miami Heat, especially in recent times and especially in the postseason. Where the Heat would find ways, and Spoelstra, a very clever coach, would find ways to just completely derail Trae Young from what it is he wanted to do. Trae Young was, by his standard, a modicum of efficiency last night, shooting 8 for 18 from the field. He had a large number of assists. I don't know if he reached double digits. I don't think so. Might have been like 8 or 9 assists.
Yeah, 25, 8, but then he had 8 rebounds. That's the issue.
Yes.
You have Trae Young, a smallish guard, have 8 rebounds. You had Capella, who only played 28 minutes, have
21 rebounds is remarkable. Yeah.
You had Johnson, who I've never heard of, have 7 rebounds. You had Bay, who I've never heard of, have 17 points. Like you had Murray, who's had a very disappointing season. He was supposed to be the big acquisition for them, have 18 points. Like, and then the other end is Collins, who's a big figure and usually kills the Heat, had 10. Like it was a really weird game where the Hawks' other guys who I didn't even know existed dominated the Heat. I mean, look, you said it. Their offensive rebound was 26 to 60. Heat as a whole had 29 rebounds. They almost more offensive rebounds than the Heat had entire rebounds.
Total, yeah. No, the Heat were not hustling in this game. And certainly didn't seem to be playing with, any kind of animalistic instincts that you would think, I mean, did they just view the play-in game as a non-postseason game? They played that game like it was the last game of the regular season and it meant nothing. That's kind of the approach they had, where, they were going to let UD score 24 points. I mean, maybe that was a carryover from that mentality, where the last game actually did mean nothing. But, that was a very deflating, about as deflating an effort as I've seen by a South Florida team in a long, long time. Miami has the Dolphins, the most deflating team. They take the ball from 20 to 20 like no one's ever seen.
They play a Jets team that had nothing to play for. They had a chance to make the playoffs with a win.
Yeah.
And the Jets with Geno Smith, who is throwing for 45% completion percentage, beats them 24-3.
All right, before we move on from this one, because it was a disaster, and then now, you're thinking from a talk show standpoint, it's good to have your local team still alive, is it not? I mean, and you would think, all right, maybe the Heat can give Boston a little bit of a go. They've had success against Boston in the past. Boston is not a team that you look at and you say, oh my God, and they're so overwhelmingly talented that there's no way that we can compete. And you can always go to Boston, Beantown, and steal one of the first two. And then next thing you know, you're down here. You got South Beach as the sixth man. You got Tatum and, all of the Marcus Smart, hanging out.
Jaylen Brown's been hurt. Like the Celtics have come back to the pack. Like
Al Horford goes and visits some of the old haunts that his dad hung out at when he was at the University of Miami. Interesting, though. I mean, just wrapping it up on the. So you thought, okay, all right, maybe they're in there with a shot. I don't like their chances against any of those teams, and I did not see the Heat getting out of the first round of the playoffs at any time in the last half of the season when you were watching and this big, debate was going on about the shakeup and where they're going to land in the Eastern Conference standings, and they ended up seventh, and now they find themselves no better than eighth if they make the postseason at all.
Yep.
Can you say, and they don't get a chance to go lottery in a rare year where they have a first round pick?
Well, and that's the thing is, I think they're going to be in the lottery, and I wasn't.
Do you go into the lottery if you don't make the postseason altogether,
Yes.
or
Yes.
don't you have to not be even in the play-in part?
No. If you're not in you're not in the playoffs. If you're not in the playoffs, you're in the lottery. Now,
Well, then why would Dallas have tanked their opportunity to be in the play-in game?
Dallas wants to be. No, Dallas had theirs isn't lottery protected. Theirs was top 10 protected.
Yeah.
They had to be in the top 10 worst teams, or the Knicks would get their
Or
pick.
the Knicks would get their pick, yeah.
There's lottery protected where if you're in the lottery at all, it's protected.
Right, but I mean, the teams that are in the play-in, like the 9th and 10th teams, they're in the lottery also?
Yes. If you don't make the playoffs, you are in the lottery.
I assumed anybody that made whatever, even if it's a pseudo postseason, to be the 9th and 10th team, and you're figuring the 7th and 8th teams are also in there. So, shouldn't they also be? So you can drop into the lottery if you don't make the postseason? Yes. Is that what your contention is? All right.
They'll be at the end of the lottery. I don't think they have really a shot in hell to get Wemby or the Henderson.
Well, we have no luck in those spots. What are you talking about? We may as well, have Elgin Baylor sitting there representing us. They drop an omelet on the face of the Heat. Almost routinely get screwed in those spots, do they not? Whenever they've been involved in any kind of lottery pick, I mean, they ended up with the number 2 pick that one year, and they took Michael Beasley.
Yes, it was a disaster.
That was ugly, right? Who ended up playing like 15 years in the NBA. This guy was around forever. Yeah. Even though he was a complete stiff when he was with the Miami Heat. All right, so they had Clint Capella at 10 and a hook for rebounds in a game over-under. I don't know what you would have done. I mean, it's easy to say now that you would have gone over. I would have gone over on Bam Adebayo, 9.5. And he ended up with what, 8 rebounds, you were saying?
9. He had 9.
9. Oh,
exactly.
Man. I mean, how good are these guys at making numbers? They had Trae Young at 9.5 assists, and he ended up with, what, you said 8?
Less. Yeah, he had less.
Okay, that was an under. They had the halftime total at 114.5. It was 115.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How do you predict something like that? What level of calculus did you have to pass in high school to be able to come up? And I don't care if you're just jamming these numbers into some kind of artificial intelligence apparatus. Still, I mean, how do you do it? Come up with a number like that, 114.5, a prediction on what the outcome of half a game in the NBA would be arbitrarily, and you're within a half a point of coming up with the number. And, what is the object of all degenerate activity that's being stimulated by people that are making lines is to get an equal number of people to go over and an equal number of people to go under. And in that fashion, you take the juice, and that's your profit, right?
Yes.
You get the vig, you get the rake. And that's how these guys make money. And then on top of that, it's just like a blackjack game where, your house odds advantage is something like 1.5%, or maybe is it even less than that? But then when you factor in that how many hands are being dealt, they're making 1.5% on all of them in general, overall. And then you factor in the buffoon-like players that are making all kinds of classic mistakes and going against what would be normal protocol in terms of how to play the hands. And, the house, gets all in that crazy any type of money, right? Going out of business.
Yes.
So, anyway, that was an oddball game. I was completely deflated about the Miami Heat. And I almost got to this point, Lubie. It would be tragic to ever fall into this mental category where you're thinking, you know what? At this point, I don't even want them to make the playoffs.
It's my dad. My dad says that. Ken said that. I don't care to make the playoffs. I just want the season to end. It's been a very.
I
tough
always figure you could turn things around at any moment. I just do. I don't know why. I mean, that's a level of optimism I think you have to live your life with. No matter how many waves are hitting you in the face, the next one might be one that you can ride right into the shore, right? It's possible. There's going to be a lot of negative stuff that's thrown your way in life. Not every situation is going to be, some people, I guess, do you know anybody that's had like a perfect ride? Perfect.
No one has
Perfect.
I know people who have.
I know people that have gotten really lucky in life, for sure.
From the outside looking in, really nice rides, but then when you talk to them, they have their own gripes too. I mean, no one has a perfect ride.
It's kind of like being in a PGA now. This whole Live Tour thing with the good showing that they had in the Masters, the Live Tour players, has sparked. Is there any athlete that is more pampered than a PGA player? Maybe tennis? I don't know, but tennis is far more physical. I mean, when you look at what these guys do, like rolling around the Miami Open there, and you're watching a guy that's going to play a night match, and he's out there just walloping balls for an hour, just incredible, velocity. And you're thinking, and you're looking at the schwitz and everything, and you're thinking, wow, this guy's still got to go out and play like in the Grand Slam events, like a best of 5. Might be in a 4-hour match, and look what they're doing. These golfers are what? They're wondering. That omelet looks a little overcooked, right? Can you make me another one? I mean, they're in the food line there, and like the most posh of circumstances. They're hanging out at the Ritz Carlton before they go out there and tee off on the most beautiful golf courses in the world. And they're bitching now. The PGA players are starting to, say, hey, you know what? We have too arduous of a workload. So we've got to do something about that because they see these other clowns making $100 million for doing nothing. They don't even have to win. And if they do win, supposedly they make more, and they're playing like 15 tournaments a year.
Well, they play less tournaments and they play one less round.
Yes. I mean, imagine. And maybe that was a factor with Brooks Koepka and the complete collapse he had in the 4th round at the Masters. I wouldn't say complete collapse, but, what would you make that tantamount to?
It felt like a joke.
He spit the bit in the 4th round there. Right? John Rahm, as much as he's drawing all kinds of praise for being so steady, he only shot 2 under in the last round. It would not have been impossible if you were Brooks Koepka he could have shot 1 under and won the tournament. And instead, he was what? He was like 5 over par he finished up 4 over par in the final round. Not exactly great. He was driving everything into the woods. But how could you possibly complain? Who is going to sit there and then this is kind of like the Housewives of Beverly Hills when they get into like a food fight at the Bel Air Hotel, sitting out there on a patio, and what do they have to complain about? Nothing. And yet the whole show, Lubie, is based on them complaining and whining about everything. Is that not the PGA Tour at this point?
100%.
They're bitching that their workload is too heavy compared to the Live Tour players, and now they're embracing the idea of maybe letting go of some of this acrimony and animosity because it showed how great the game could be. Did you ever believe for a second? This sounds like the biggest bullshit that you could ever try to pull over on somebody. But when the Live Tour players and defectors were saying, you know why we're doing this? To grow the game.
Yeah, no, that's not. No, I don't care. Even if it is a weird side effect, that it's a load of shit.
Yeah,
100%.
No, I mean that is like some serious bullshit, right? I mean that's almost Trump-esque.
Yes.
Where you're thinking, yeah, sure, Donnie. Why don't we all gargle with chlorine? Some kind of Clorox, extrapolation there, and maybe this COVID will go away. I think you're right. Who was that crazy doctor, the woman doctor that was part of the
Burks
staff there?
Wasn't it
Yeah,
Burks?
it might have been. Yeah, she was something, huh? Did she eventually quit over credibility issues? Where she just said, "I can't do this anymore." Listen, Donnie, I can't sit there and act like you're right about this stuff.
100%. Yeah, she eventually was.
She
like,
finally came in, threw in the towel. All right, so that was the Heat last night. It was, I don't know that I'm as emotional about the Heat as I used to be at one time. I was a big Heat fan.
Really?
I love the fact that we had a franchise. I went to a ton of games. Really enjoyed covering the Miami Heat. I listened to games on the radio. I watched them on TV. And, it was really kind of a basketball nut. Always loved the game myself. Enjoyed playing it for as long as I could. And, still think, as you roll by a park, Lubie, do you ever get the inclination? Maybe I'll take do you have a ball in your trunk that you haven't used in like
I
12
use it.
years?
My buddy still does that to this day. I don't. I have like stuff for my nephews because I'll have them. I'll pick them up a lot. So I have like a soccer ball and a football. I for a while I had a basketball because my nephew liked it, but I always have a ball just in case a game randomly pops up. I
Right.
had done that forever. Yeah, I used to do that up until about college.
There's these basketball courts by the fire station that I roll by almost every day, Lauderdale by the Sea. And usually are people playing out there. And my buddy, Marty the Party Sachs, used to be out there running full with Tony Bartocha, who actually had, some credibility as like a Jersey star in basketball. Now, he ended up breaking both of his wrists in a fall, which would be discouraging for like an old fat guy to want to go back out there and try to run full again. But the full court is suspect there because it's one of those full courts that's more like a half court, right? Where you take 2 steps from the top of the key and you're at the half court stripe. Ever seen, you've seen courts like this that aren't
Yes.
necessarily regulation length.
Yes.
So if you were going to run full, this would be the place to do it. Although, for my money, it's too many guys in a small space, especially, that have declining basketball skills, and it becomes awkward. So it's easy to get yourself hurt in a game like that, is it not? I don't know. I haven't attempted to play basketball in years and years and years. I would have to say last time I even like went out and shot a basketball was when Jersey Kyle and I used to play one-on-one at the LA Fitness in Fort Lauderdale. And that was under the strict auspices, Lubie, of token pressure, right? That's your defense. It was kind of like the Heat defense last night. You think Spoelstra called for that? Let's go token pressure in this one.
I don't think Spoelstra called for it. I think they were like, yeah, we love you, Spo, but we're done.
Token pressure, right? You still can't hit a freaking shot. It's unbelievable. All right, the Marlins had something unusual happen last night. By their standard, for sure, it's the first time. They were the only team left in the major leagues that had never had a hitter bat for the cycle or a batter hit for the cycle. Probably a better way of putting that, right? Have a hitter
For the side. Oh, and you talked about that on our Defo and 5, so I'm sure we're going to talk about it before. You had also brought up, like, is it this better than no hitter? My problem is there's only
what would you rather see? Would you rather be at a game where a guy pitched a no hitter, either for your team, especially, or against your team, as was the case? I still remember being there. I can visualize myself in a stands there with my dad and my brother. Neither of whom were baseball fans or sports fans at all. I mean, my brother, a minor interest, in playing a little bit, but really was not a sports fan. I don't want to say he wouldn't know a basketball from a bowling pin, but, more inclined to be in that category than he was to be somebody that could tell you Smokey Burgess' batting average as a pinch hitter during his career. And my dad had virtually no interest in sports either. It was one of the few things that he was not overwhelmingly intrigued by. And, his only interest in it was because I was a giant sports fan for some reason. How does that happen if it's not in your family's DNA? My mother obviously, was not involved in any kind of sporting activity, although she had good luck at the track the one time I took her. But how does that happen, Louis? See, now your whole family, is your mother involved in rooting for her teams?
My mom will watch some on her own, but my dad is psychotic, as you've heard, and so
Yeah.
my mom watches all the games with him. She's watched lots of games with me. She gets super into it to the point where my dad won't watch and my mom will get in, like the tournament, like when she's big on South Florida teams. So when the South Florida teams are doing well, whatever sport, whether it's hockey, that Panthers run, by the time they got to the conference finals, my mom was watching every minute of every game, living and dying by it. Yeah, we are very big into sports. My sister and brother, not so much. But my mom, my dad, and me, like, it was indoctrinated in me very early. So I'm always curious. My uncles are huge into it. Like, my uncle was the one at the Radio Row every year. Like,
Yeah.
you always intrigued me how you had no one but your uncle.
No, and I was, obsessed with it from as early as I can remember. I loved sports, every aspect of it, and a lot of different sports, and even bizarre sports, right? Because even as a young kid, I was heavily interested in like boxing history and thoroughbred racing history. And, we knew every batting average and statistic, fielding percentages of bizarre, obscure players. And, every sport we followed as closely as we possibly could.
Friends, because I'm trying to think of my group of friends. Most of us all had dads that were into it. Even my buddy, whose dad was in New York, was really into sports. I did have a friend who his parents had broken up. He had a stepfather who wasn't really into sports. His mom wasn't really into sports, but we were. And being with us really brought up his sports IQ to the point where he became a sports fanatic. Like maybe where you grew up. You grew up in freaking New York.
I grew up in Brooklyn, and all the other kids were big sports fans. We were mostly Yankee fans back then in the 50s. The Knicks were not necessarily, forefront, in our consciousness because we didn't really play basketball in Brooklyn. Where I was growing up. In fact, it was rare that we even shot a basketball until I moved to Long Island, where obviously it was one of the premier things that was taking place out there. Especially as a recreational sport.
Baseball
among friends.
Baseball in Brooklyn must have been fucking insane.
Baseball was huge. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a chance to play like actual baseball. First time I really played hardball, as Warren Cromartie talking hardball with the Crow. Was when at 11 years old, I got into the Belmore Little League.
Yeah.
And I could not have been more thrilled, Lubie. I mean, putting that uniform on, it was like you were receiving the Congressional Medal of Honor.
It must have been like Field of Dreams. Because you just had like buildings and streets, and then you're in like a real freaking grass field.
Oh, my God. The smell of the grass, right? It was that whole spring training poetry nonsense that I used to put you through, torture you through. You think the listeners were just dropping off like flies as I was doing that kind of shit? That was unbelievable. What was I trying to prove there?
I don't know. Sarnie probably would like it. Sarnie loves that soapy crap.
There's something to be said for it. I mean, you listen to some of these narrations. I tell you, it's interesting. It used to be Liev Schreiber was narrating all of these all access type of things leading up to big fights.
Yep.
And you know who does the narration now? That was Liev Schreiber was HBO affiliated. I don't know if he ever did it for Showtime, but since HBO dropped out of boxing and Showtime does all of the big stuff that's happening on television, that at least most people have access to without paying a high premium like a pay-per-view. Which this next fight's going to be pay-per-view. Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. I don't know if you're familiar with either of these two guys.
Why no Davis?
Davis is great. I don't know. I still think he is going to beat Ryan Garcia. A lot of people. Most of the handicappers that are looking at this fight, I'm not sure what the odds are on it, also see it that same way. Because I just think Davis is too versatile for this other guy. But Garcia brought in Joe Goosen, who was one of my favorite trainers. I got to know Joe Goosen a little bit when I was on the boxing circuit. Trainer out of California. He's had some real good fighters in his stable over the years. And, of course, he was famous that Chico Corrales fight, where it was in against Jose Luis Castillo. It's one of the classic fights of all time. I don't know. You probably remember it if you think about it, where he's getting the shit beat out of him. He's already gotten knocked down twice. I think it was like the 12th or 13th round of the fight. And he actually, as he's being, he's getting a count, and that they had him, like Goosen in the corner was like cutting the gloves off the guy or some tape off the gloves. So he had to go to the corner. And this guy has been seeing, stars for the last 2 minutes of the fight. And Goosen says, you better fucking do something about this right now if you want to win this thing.
And he wakes up.
Thinking, and then he wakes up out of nowhere and knocks the guy out.
That's crazy.
It was one of, the great back and forth Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward type of fights that you will ever see, where the guys were exchanging just vicious, flurries all throughout the fight. But anyway, this Garcia guy picked up Joe Goosen as his trainer now, and that may or may not make some kind of difference. But he's a real good looking kid out of California, who is typical of that type of fighter that used to be very popular when I was covering boxing out there. Has the right approach and everything, and big power puncher. But I don't know if he has enough ammunition to beat this guy Davis. Anyway, who does the narration? I watched a couple of All Access on this. The thing they used to do with Money Mayweather on all of his fights, and then the fight would be a complete dud like last night's Heat game. And Barry Pepper, who looks like everybody, does the narration.
Pepper,
yeah,
I like him, but he doesn't have like that,
He's got a great voice for it. He really does. Barry Pepper does a tremendous job, and it's that lyrical type of poetry that you despise? That I don't know. Is that just an old school thing? Where you like that sort of stuff? I mean, the application of words to a sporting theory, Rinaldi type of stuff.
I
Not
like
not
it.
quite as soapy as Rinaldi.
I actually like it. Like I'll watch it. I just found it funny when you would do it because you would always mock it. Like you would always
Yes.
mock Ronaldo. You mock Segredo. You mock the people that are heavy-handed when it's talking about sports, which is just like you say, the toy department. So when you would then do it, I'm like, hello.
No, I mean, it was a ridiculous stretch, of my abilities to attempt to do that sort of thing and make it make sense. I mean, what am I writing? Casey at the bat here?
That's what I'm
There
saying.
was no joy in Mudville whenever I would
There
go
was
into
no
that.
joy in Mudville that day.
That's for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty corny stuff. But I have an appreciation for that sort of art form of sports writing or writing in general that probably stems. I mean, that's something that I probably did get from my dad, who was an excellent writer and far better than I ever was, during my days as a sports writer. But that being said, I mean, I do remember and vividly remember it was a Father's Day. Jim Bunning pitches a perfect game. Had somebody hit for the cycle that day, or would I, still have it in my memory bank from what was that, 1964? I want to say the opening year of Shea Stadium. And Bunning's perfect game was the first game of a doubleheader, Mets and the Phillies. The Mets lost that game, obviously. They lost the second game, and we didn't mind going to see any number of Met losses. And the reason we were there, my father was looking for something to do with the kids. I ended up winning like a coin flip or something. I think we did one of those things with the baseball bat where you have to get your thumb over the handle, and there was a way to win that every time. Much like there was a way to win every coin flip and a way to win, especially when you had to do the matchy thing with cards, baseball cards, where you dropped a card down, and if it came up face up, then the other guy had to come up face up. But whatever, I mean, just like in flipping a coin, whatever side you have face up to begin with is going to be the opposite in almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Is it 100% foolproof, that system? Maybe not, right?
I don't know. Yeah, because it would get rigged more than that. Like,
take your hands off the dice table there, you clown, right? As looks like your hard eight's about to come in and you've parlayed it 3 times. You're going to pick up 3,500. And this guy lets the dice roll off a fingertip there. And all of a sudden, the spinning 4 lies over like a dreidel and becomes a 3. What are the letters on a dreidel, Louie? Do we know? Not sure. Anyway, you wouldn't remember it if a guy hit for the cycle, would you? That the argument, I mean, you brought it up. It was an argument I used to have with Joe Rose. I think Joe Rose was just, trying to be an antagonist at that point.
Well, what I wanted to say was there's only one thing better as a pitcher than a no-hitter, right? There's a perfect game.
A perfect game. That's it, yeah.
And before the last few years, a no-hitter was a big freaking deal. The last few years, because everyone strikes out, we've seen an abundance of no-hitters. I always thought a cycle was weird because wouldn't it be better to have 2 triples or 2 doubles or 2 home runs? Like those are a better game statistically than throwing the fucking single in. Like,
yes.
Oh, he doesn't have a single. He needs a single. I'd rather a double. Like a double's better. Like,
I mean, if you're throwing a stolen base, does that take it to another exponent?
Like there's better statistical days.
Yes,
like,
that's a good point.
4 home runs. Like
a 4 home run day would be a spectacular thing to see. Much more exciting than a guy hitting for the cycle, no?
Like I don't get it. It's cool because it's a statistical anomaly.
Yeah,
I guess.
right.
But it's
very unusual. You've had one of everything. I mean, you've had the trifecta where you've had a blonde, a dark-haired woman, and a redhead all in the same day, right? It's like, what is that? What is the trifecta in fishing? A permit? What are the other 2 fish that they consider to be part of the trifecta, the big trifecta? Come on, we have to have some fishermen out there. Where's Eric Brandon when you need him? Come on, Eric, if you're watching.
He's watched before.
Let us know. Sign on the chat line there and tell us what is the trifecta considered? Is that just in Florida fishing? A bonefish might be one of them. Bonefish,
okay.
Permit, and what else?
No clue.
A blue marlin? What is it? Come on, Lubie.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Somebody's got to know, man. We're in South Florida. This is the fishing capital of the universe here. Is it really? No, maybe Costa Rica. Did you go fishing when you were in Costa Rica? Were you tempted to go deep sea fishing?
No, but it probably. I've heard it's great. Like, good for them.
Yeah, it's supposed to be great. I was surprised the professor didn't get out there on a boat. Did he? When he was down there, he seemed to have a very poor time there. He still has that unresolved issue with his credit card and the cheese ball hotel you guys were staying at. All right, so the story is this. The Marlins had never had a guy hit for the cycle. Never. Okay, and I was tuning into this Marlin game because I wanted to see, what Luzardo was going to do, and then I'm trying to figure out if it's a premature evaluation to say that the team sucks. I don't want to be one of those guys, that just immediately because they got off to like a 4-7 start, you go, oh my god, they suck. Do they? I don't know, and I felt bad, even implying that it was going to be a long year because we love Tommy Hutton. I know he's a fan of the show. And Tommy would not be happy that we immediately threw in the towel on the Marlins season under the auspices of not having even seen them play, which I'd seen a couple of games, and when I've been watching it, it's been dreadful. I mean, really, they couldn't do any more wrong. I did see one of their wins, where they ended up with 5 runs that one game, and I watched a lot of that. Because I'm curious, can these guys be bad forever that were acquired by Kim Ng? This Jacob Stallings, I mean, behind the plate, how can you put that guy out there? They traded Alfaro away. I think he's doing well now, isn't he, with the Red Sox?
He's been good. He was
Jorge
good.
Alfaro, he was with San Diego and he didn't do much, but he grew his hair out to some kind of monstrous level. As I think, the wildest hair in the league. Jorge Alfaro, have you seen him?
I know who he is. I don't know about his hair. I didn't know he unleashed the locks. I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to, think of somebody. He kind of looks like your man Jorge Masvidal, a little bit, the UFC guy.
He does, yes. I didn't know he had long hair, but yeah, face wise, he definitely.
Well, no, and the hair now is like. I mean, he could not play for the Yankees. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I think he's distinguished himself a little bit. Certainly would have been a far better alternative than this guy Jacob. How can you start this guy behind the plate when he's hitting 071? And last year I don't know what he finished with. And maybe I'm being unfair because for most of the season, this Stallings was also hitting like 170 last year when they acquired this guy.
He's been dreadful. Well, and that's the thing is it's not like all these people they signed. It wasn't like they were unknowns that they were hoping to be good. They were people that had success. Garcia, Soler was the freaking World Series MVP.
But see that could be a real fluke. To base your opinion of a player just based on one World Series where he went off. I mean, remember Gene Tennis was a nothing player for the I mean, it was like a lifetime 222 hitter or something.
I remember
and he had a giant World Series. I guess Doyle for the Yankees was one of those guys.
I remember Cody Ross for the Giants. Like he sucked here, and then he had 80 RBIs.
Right. Yeah.
NLCS MVP, and then.
But that's a different theory, though, Lubie. Where you were a Marlin or a South Florida sports performer, and you go elsewhere, and immediately you light it up like you were Ryan Tannehill. Right? I mean, that's an unfortunate syndrome that persists here, which is another reason why your argument with Mr. Schwartz, I guess, has some relevance also, which is, that seems to apply to even players, right? They can't wait to get out of here, even though this would be, I would think, a paradise-like situation for anybody in professional sports. I don't know that you would want to be a Marlin player playing in front of nobody. No. The Panther fans are at least passionate when they're at the arena there. So if you were a Panther fan, it doesn't matter that the team is largely ignored.
Yeah.
If you're a Heat fan, obviously you're getting all kinds of love and adulation. And if you're a Dolphin fan, I think you are getting more than your fair share of respect from the fans out there, especially given the fact that it would be easy to have been neutered to any kind of fandom for the Dolphins after the last 20-some-odd years.
Yep.
Or the post-Marino era. So anyway, this guy, Louis Arise, finally hits for the cycle. For the Marlins, they were the only team in Major League Baseball that hadn't had a hitter go for the cycle. Which, does that, I mean, the guy's only been with the team 12 games. He was able to do it.
Yeah, it's impressive.
I would be 1,000% on board with you, Lubie, on this one. And that is, and Joe Rose, I don't know if he was just making an argument to, have something to talk about. Because that was back in the day where you would, be inclined to take a ridiculously undefendable position and go ahead, sort of like what we see today on the Stephen A. Smith show or Skip Bayless, where a guy's trying to contend that LeBron James is not really a good player to have on your team. Right? Here he is. What? Is he 38? LeBron James or 35? 38?
38. What do you mean he started playing in 2003?
Yes.
It's been 20
Oh, my
years.
God.
Even if he was 18, which he was 18, he wasn't 15.
How is this guy doing this, man? I mean, holy Jack LaLanne. It really is incredible. And the Lakers got out of a jam. I mean, that the Heat couldn't do. The Lakers were down 15 in the third quarter and going nowhere. All the momentum was Minnesota's way. I don't know. I mean, what's up with Minnesota, this Rudy Gobert situation? And it wasn't like he knocked this guy down. This wasn't, our man Chico Corrales flooring Jose Luis Castillo in the late rounds. This was kind of a mile, like he took a shot at the guy from a mile away. I mean, even though he has the big reach advantage, Rudy Gobert. But they were also missing another one of their key players last night, Minnesota, whose name escapes me. But they suspended Gobert for a playoff game. Can you imagine? That was a team suspension, not a league suspension, I believe.
Yeah, it was a team. The team suspended.
Team suspension. I mean, what is that?
Got into a fight with his own team.
He threw like a punch at the guy, and they separated him immediately while they were in a huddle. Because the guy probably said, hey, listen, you French fuck.
And Gobert sucks. That whole trade's going to go. We love talking about South Florida, the worst trades ever. Like they traded a haul for a guy who just plays defense, and he's not even doing that. He's just pissing his teammates off.
Right.
That trade was a disaster.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but you had Karl Anthony Towns. He's legit. You have, some other players on the Wolves that are
one of the best young players in the game.
Anthony Edwards. Yeah, excellent. And they're in command of this game against the Lakers. The Lakers are doing nothing. I actually tuned away from the game because, and I figured after watching the Heat game, you know what my first inclination was? To watch a couple of episodes of Deadliest Catch.
You in that show? I don't think I've
ever where guys are like sliding right off the boat into the Arctic Sea there. I mean, and you're thinking, that can't be pleasant. It's not like you thought, man, let's take the shirt off and go for a swim. Those guys are flat out crazy, man. They make a lot of money, though. The guy was making like $50,000. One of the deckhands who, barely had teeth and, didn't know what day it was. And he was going to make 50 dimes for being out there. But not everybody makes it back. That's the unfortunate thing. But I turned away from the Laker game, and I didn't realize it was even still on. I popped open, my eyes popped open after about an hour's sleep, and I'm like, let's see, what was the final score there? And there was none posted. And I turned back on to TNT, and they're still playing.
Overtime, yep.
Yep, they went into OT against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So they move on to face the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round. Now, I've been telling you all year long, don't sleep on the Lakers, Lubie.
Well, finally, you're right, because the Grizzlies...
I don't know if I'm right about that, but what do you think? I mean, did they beat the Grizzlies?
I haven't seen the Grizzlies the last month after all the John Morant stuff, but I can't imagine that they played better.
Yeah.
So, if the Lakers are playing the best ball of the year, the Grizzlies are sort of in disarray. It actually is...
The strangeness with John Morant. I don't know how that resolves itself. When LeBron James and Davis are playing well, which they have been, both of them, they've been great.
They added Russell, a real point guard.
Right, and Russell has been effective for him. And this guy Reeves has really come on.
Yes.
So, they have, and who is it? Is it Schrader or Schroeder? How do you pronounce that guy's name?
Schroeder.
Yeah, he's also effective.
Yes.
So they've really sort of balanced things out. They went from being outside the play-in tournament to now being the seventh seed, and maybe catch a Grizzlies team that is not exactly 100% in sync.
Oh, and Dylan Brooks in a freaking head case lately. Yeah, and that's the two of the top three players for the Grizzlies. So it falls in the Lakers' lap, actually. As a
good opening round, my friend. A lot of good opening round matchups, both East and West. And you would want to be a part of it. I mean, if your team's in it, you tend to pay even more attention to it, no? Or do we not even care about our local teams enough that it matters because you're a general sports fan and you would watch the postseason no matter what and find the more interesting matchups. And if you're a degenerate gambler, of course, you're betting on all of this stuff. Panthers, by the way, make the postseason. That was another development last night we should touch on. We finally get a guy to hit for the cycle. I don't know of what significance really is that, Libby. You're right. If a guy hit 4 home runs in a game, it would be far more interesting and obviously far more challenging than a guy getting a hit of every variety. But very well done by Luis Ariz, who's hitting over 500. So of all the acquisitions of Kim Ng, traded Pablo Lopez, I don't know if they sent more commodities in the direction of the Twins. But you have to love this guy. If you're interested in hitting and what it should be, the guy that doesn't possess a ton of power. As I said, I had the pleasure of covering a lot of Angel games when Rod Carew was with the team. And he was sort of at the tail end of his career at that point. But wow, I mean, I do remember him watching him with the Twins, and you thought that this guy, without almost effortlessly, like a swing like Freddie Couples, where it doesn't even look like the guy's moving, and just in perfect harmony with what you need to do to hit a baseball exactly where it should be going. I mean, when he has a pitch he can pull, he pulls it. Pitch that obviously he'd be much better off going the opposite way if he wanted to get a hit. Goes the opposite way, including his home run and the last single that he needed late in the ball game, which the Marlins won. So they're 5-7. Do we throw in the towel? I'm sorry, Tommy. I didn't mean to even imply that the season was over.
I mean, the Mets went all in. They're only a game behind them.
Yeah.
So they're at about as good a start as the Mets.
Which way does it go, though?
Oh, no, they're going to be horrible. They're not going to be good, but they may cover that number. They may show improvement.
Listen to you, Mr. Optimism.
I don't know.
All right. We'll see. Seems to me, I mean, they were trying to make a case about Trevor Rogers and the heat that this guy throws, but he has not been good.
The last 2 years, not good.
Yeah. Luzardo seems to have figured things out.
Yes.
I know he got touched up, I guess, in the 6th inning for 3 runs. But beside that, I mean, the guy has been excellent all season long, and that's the only time he's been even remotely reached for anything of any significance in his 3 starts this year. And you have to figure, that was an aberration with Sandy Alcantara, no?
That was weird. Yeah, no. I mean, it's fine. It's just as annoying. Like, you're going to have a bad day, give up 3 runs.
Yeah.
You have like 9 or there's like some stupid ass number.
Anyway, Kim Ng finally hit on something there with this Arise guy, or so it appears. After bombing out with the Avisail Garcia, disaster, Jacob Stallings, a disaster, and Soler has been a disaster as well. Soler has a few home runs. He did win 1 ball game. I mean, he was majorly responsible for one of their victories when he had did he have 2 home runs in the same game?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was good. Makes a few plays in the outfield, but to hit below the Mendoza line is just impossible to condone. And I know it's early in the season. A couple of hits can make a big difference, but so far, I mean, through last year and the early portion of this year, those acquisitions have done nothing but weigh you down. It's cement overshoes. It's an anchor, right? It's a Cinto Vasquez, top of the stretch on a speedball, and all of a sudden you're seeing skid marks on the track, and you're thinking, what is that? And he's actually dropped physically an actual anchor. And is dragging it as the horse fades from first all the way back into oblivion. All right, we're going to come back with more. We have some interesting people coming up here, including one of our real good friends for a long, long time here in the South Florida sporting media scene, the great Craig Minervini, who's versatile, right? Not only can he do the best Bob Murphy impression, maybe the only Bob Murphy impression of anybody we've ever had on the show. Do we goad him into doing it again, Lubie? Craig Minervini?
Yes, he's either going to do a Marv Albert or Bob Murphy. I've accepted that whenever we have him on.
Yeah. I believe he does others, but his Bob Murphy is spot on. It really is. It's fantastic. Now, it's obscure, right? I mean, would you have to be... You never heard Bob Murphy do a game, did you? There's a Lion Drive.
Never.
And he was a great guy, one of the nicest guys. And he did something that I think I'm going to end up doing, which I hope to now. I've come to this epiphany on my, walks of life, especially... the last couple of days. Yesterday, no kite surfers out there, man. It was even rough for them. Is that possible? The winds here in South Florida?
Windy.
No, but now, I love the maniac that goes out there on a surfboard, when the hurricane, the eye is passing over, and that's when they decide, hey, strap it onto the roof of the Corolla, man. We're going surfing today. Those guys usually have a van, right? And then you see them like entering the water off the pier. Not exactly the smartest thing that you could do, but the guys that go out there on days like yesterday and start kite surfing, you usually see at least a couple. Lubie, on my walk of life, you'll see it's like, holy shit, some guy. And how do you practice that for the first time, Lubie? Kite surfing. Is there like a way to work your way up to it?
I wouldn't know because I would never do it. It's one of those crazy ass things that my wife either has done or wants to do that she would love to see me do that I won't do.
Oh my God, Jews don't kite surf. You never see an Israeli flag, as the trim, so to speak, on the kite. No, never. I mean, you would have to think that you would be impaled to one of the condos here. That would be the lead story in the news. Man impaled to 5th floor condo scares the life out of old lady. And obviously, your chances of surviving that would be slim and none. How the hell do you control that for the first time?
Again, you're talking to the wrong dude. I'm not.
You just let go, I guess. I don't know. What do you do?
I have a Jewish mother and I had a Jewish grandmother. I was.
There's no daredevil in Judaism.
I was made scared to do anything.
That was going to be one of my working titles for my biography, Daredevil Jew. Remember?
Yeah, but that's more track related.
How'd we get on Daredevil Jew from Luis Ariz? All right, one good acquisition by Kim Eng. That's good. Panthers, backed their way. They don't back their way in,
Oh,
right?
they're not done. They may win and they will.
Yeah, they did what they had to do at the end of the season, right? They put themselves in this commanding position. Let's go the right way with this.
Even now, Mayo, and it's scaring me.
Mayo's on the bandwagon. Oh, get out of here.
They're going to win 2 rounds and find themselves in the conference finals. It's like, oh, Mayo, please.
See, now, if he was smart, he would bet that. Because in his cynicism, he has found, some sort of degenerate salvation.
Yes, I was going to say success.
Yeah.
Degenerate success, yep.
But, of course, typical of all of us who are fueled by self-sabotage, he lays off of those bets.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And then ends up betting like a dinner for 4 at the runway, 84, which would be an expensive proposition these days. I do not believe, however, that Mayo is paying for everything that he gets when he goes to runway 84. I think it's serious comp city from Anthony Bruno.
Yes.
See, and that man wields power because Bruno doesn't, kowtow to anyone necessarily. He has no reason to sit there and crumble in front of some, food critic. Right? People are going to be going there no matter what. They could say the food was poison, in some local article, and still people are going to runway 84 because they know that critic obviously has an agenda at that point, and is far from relaying what the real story is. But nonetheless, even Bruno, when Mayo walks in, he goes, "Make sure table 24 gets well taken care of."
Yeah, but that's the thing. Mayo doesn't just walk in. Mayo literally every time he's gone there, the 3 times he's gone, lets him know ahead of time, and they make sure to respond. We'll take care of you.
He runs promos on Let's Eat South Florida, and on the Mayo Lunchbox show. I'll be going to runway 84 tonight. Okay, Mike. I like the fact you talk about adapting to the environment, man. I mean, or the conditions of the job. I mean, as soon as he became an electronic media guy. Not that these newspaper guys were immune to it, but newspaper guys were pretending all of these years that they had too much integrity, they didn't even fly on the team plane because they didn't want to look like they were overly influenced by the team's hospitality to say favorable things about the team.
Credible. They want to be credible.
That would not be Mayo anyway. I mean, for him to dive into that Fred Couples divorce and actually write about it. And then single out that it was the pool guy, for God's sake. See, there you go, Lubie. I believe it's subliminal with you and the lack of the pool guy because you're worried about the lovely Shirley. She spends many hours away. And, you're gone a lot, right? Yeah, especially around noontime when the pool might be clean.
All the time. She never leaves my house. And I'm here. Like, what is the pool? Good luck to them.
Yeah.
I'm not scared about any of that. I try to.
A lot of guys would just go ahead and only hire an ugly pool guy.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Like she's
even that guy is capable of getting over on the wife.
Like, our maid is a sweet lady, but she's not going to be in a magazine.
It goes with the job. It really does. That if you're a pool guy, you're probably sleeping with a few people's wives. No.
Jesus. Well, I've met a few, they may do well for themselves, but they weren't the quintessential.
Wouldn't you go into that line of work, thinking that was going to be one of the byproducts of the job?
Well, when I was a pizza delivery guy, that was always, I wonder.
Pizza delivery, you don't have enough time to stoop the wife.
No, but you don't know. Who cares? When
she sees you out there with the sun, screen on there and the hat that you had, made for you in Key West when you were there. They always have great hats, these guys. And, free diving to the bottom of the pool to repair a light, while staying underwater for over, 2 minutes. And she's thinking, wow, this guy lasts long under there.
Oh, Jesus.
Guy's got a good body because he's always outside working physically. You're a fat schlub at this point. All right. All right. Here, we have some legitimate stuff coming up here in the program. Sorry about that, people, and the deviation from the norm here. Brian Mahoney is an outstanding basketball analyst. He does a great job. He is with the Associated Press. He operates out of New York. Covers, I guess, the Knicks on a regular basis.
Knicks, Nets, Northeast.
And
but
the
he
Nets. Okay, he does them both. Okay, very
covers
good.
NBA
Yeah.
at large. I mean, he covers the entire NBA.
Very knowledgeable NBA guy, and he's going to join us there. A little playoff preview coming up, and then because we wanted to diversify and get a little baseball and the hockey on the program, Craig Minervini is going to join us. Plus, he's a great guy, and so that's going to be. Although Mini is a 50-50 proposition, is he not?
He's just a night guy. He's all.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, but well, maybe he did the Marlins because the Panthers didn't have a game. They don't have a game for 2 days. That's why I went after him. But maybe
he was on the Marlins post-game show last night.
So that's what it is. And Blaylock's not the night owl that he is, but her job's at night. So and remember, they stay to the end, and then they have to drive home, and then
beyond the end, I would imagine. I believe the post-game when the Marlins are on the road are done from some studio that is near like Landlubbers or it's near the Panthers arena.
But you still have to stay to the end, and then you don't go.
I believe that. I think that's where. I think that's where Bally Sports Florida has a studio. I want to say that to be true. So he didn't have to schlep all the way down to the stadium, I guess, to do this show. Yeah.
But he's still by the time. So that's what it is. He's a late night working guy, so he'd rather do later in the morning. And
he'd rather not do it at all. Yeah.
No, he actually enjoys coming on, but he wants to come on at like 10. And I'm like, yeah,
10?
that doesn't work.
Yeah. I'm come on a lunchbox. He's eating in a lot of great places. He's eating all over the country, this guy.
I actually should have him do a lunchbox one.
Yeah, should he'd be great on there because I think Mayo would dig the impressions. He does other people though besides Bob Murphy and Marv Albert. I want to say we'll have to ask him. All right, but that's all coming up in just a few minutes here in the show. Hialeah Park. That's always something good to be thinking about. People, I've been telling you about Hialeah Park since I've been here in South Florida, and I've always enjoyed my association with these guys because it's easy to represent something that no matter what, when you get down there, you're going to find it even more impressive than I could make it seem. Because I've always loved the grounds there, and I love this aspect. It was one of the things I enjoyed about. Well, I mean, as a kid, you used to get this when you walked into Yankee Stadium, right? Getting into that poetic thing that we were talking about earlier. Well, the smell of the grass, fresh cut, and the bunting on the sidelines. Not the players' bunting, but like the banners and everything, the flags. I mean, it was a thing where it was an atmospheric change from what you were used to. Even if you were living on the beach, man, you would walk into a ballpark and there was just something about it. And that's kind of how Hialeah Park struck me the first time I walked in there. And it still does the same way, has the same impact. You walk in, you go, man, this place is incredible. And that's the grounds. And then they integrated the old and the new. I mean, they fused it together seamlessly, as they say. With the casino they put in there, and then the outdoor patio is great. I mean, that's going to be rocking over the weekend, Friday and Saturday night with DJs. The party really was spectacular. Always a great vibe in there, too, which is a nice thing in a casino. You don't want the casino, to hand you a little vial of embalming fluid as you walk in and say, here, this will put you in the mood like the rest of the people. And they're all sitting there at the machines just going, when am I going to win? Well, how about a cherry? How about one stinking cherry? Remember, you've had those runs, right? I had one this last weekend in thoroughbred race betting where it's like, just give me one, a disqualification, anything. I'll take it. A 2 to 5 shot, I'll take it. But at Hialeah Park, they have a good vibe going, and that's always advantageous to players out there because you want to go out there and have some fun, too, and be in there with a shot, maybe to score a giant jackpot or just grind down a nice, steady win and leave with more cash than you came in with. And even if, you drop a couple of bucks, you're thinking, wow, did I have a good time here, man? Because it's all about entertainment. Great food and drink, great rewards program. Get a player's card. That'll be, also very advantageous to you, as will be every visit in terms of enhancing and warming, Lubie, your spirit. Don't you feel good when you go down and visit the people at Hialeah Park?
Yes.
Does it not create a little, generate a feeling inside, Lubie?
Yes.
Maybe this is being overdramatic. No? What do you think?
It's being overdramatic, but you do feel that. You do.
I do. I feel that. I do every time I go down there. I always enjoy it immensely, and I think, man, I ought to do this more often. Yes. And you'll find that same feeling as well the next time you visit beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, coming back, and we'll have Brian Mahoney of the Associated Press. I always enjoy talking to Brian. He's a real good guy, too, and he kind of gets what's going on here on the program, and then Craig Minervini later on this Marlins cycle accomplishment. You were absolutely right about this, Libby. Glad you brought that up. A 4-home run game, man. Give me Johnny Blanchard hitting 4 in a row.
A ton of games that are better than a cycle statistically. That's why I
Yeah.
think pitching, no hitter may be boring because there's less action, but like there's only one game better, a perfect game.
Yeah.
Hitting wise, there's a ton: 3 triples, 4 triples, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 3 home runs, 2 home runs may be more statistically better than like. There's just a lot of games that are better than hitting for the cycle. It's just a cool anomaly, but it's not statistically the best game a hitter can have.
Yeah, that ridiculous argument Joe Rose used to put up about, well, I'd much rather go to see a guy hit for the cycle than a no-hitter.
I never even know when a guy's.
And he was a baseball fan, too. I mean, that seems, holy Bob Costas, that's outrageous to think that, no?
Like, you keep track of a no-hitter. Like, by the 5th inning, you're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, a cycle, I honestly
It's a fluke.
Yeah. I would know. Like, a cycle is the kind of thing I would know because I'm watching at home or I see the stats. Like, if you're at a game, do you know a guy's hitting for, like, are you tracking that? I'm not tracking that.
Well, and the Marlins were winning this game. And let's suppose that, a Rise had come up needing a single to hit for the cycle. And, there were 2 away and the Marlins were trailing by 1. Right? Would you much rather have him hit a home run? Of course. So that would bust up your big accomplishment. Oh, my God. We were there last night and the guy hit for the cycle. You're right. It's ridiculous. Why are we even talking about this? Well, we'll get into that with Minervini. It's a chump statistic, a fluke. But, still, bears some level of distinction when it comes to following baseball. Would we know who has hit for the most cycles in baseball history? That's got to be Lou Gehrig. No?
Not off the top of my head. I'm sure it's somewhere.
It's one of those guys, yeah, like Rogers Hornsby or something. All right. Kevin Rogers. All right, we're coming back with more. Brian Mahoney joins us in a moment here on the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie. Let's go visit Hialeah Park, and we'll come back in a moment with Brian Mahoney. Now that.
The time.
Did the Heat deliberately tank that game so they could get a chance at Milwaukee? It's 8:20.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business, and the insurance company can be your friend.
Right here on the Defo Show.
You did a rather abrupt edit on that commercial there, Michael Lubitz. What happened to Justina Testa?
They're not sponsored.
Did you change her phone number? All right.
I put the wrong thing in.
Did you call her? She doesn't answer anymore when you are saying, about those payments from last March. All right. Welcome back to the show, the Defo Show here on South Florida Live. Great to have you with us. Also, 5 Reasons Sports Network. No doubt. I mean, this would be a representative segment to pop on Ethan Skolnick's fine site there, which is growing like a weed. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubitz, and we welcome to the show from the Associated Press, and always a great conversation whenever we're talking baskets. Oh, okay. You don't have the guy yet.
No, it was 8:30. I told you 8:30 originally, and then I meant to put in 8:30, and then I had to do something, so I put in 8:20 by accident.
Should I just, save that introduction and, do an
Don't
abrupt edit there? come in. Anyway, Brian Mahoney's going to join us here in a few minutes, and we'll talk about the postseason. And as we said, I go Al Burstein on this again. Many intriguing matchups. Cavaliers and the Knicks will be spotlighted naturally because already getting a heavy dose of that in my New York Post. And the Nets are involved against the Philadelphia 76ers. Of the big three teams in the East, which seem to be on relatively equal footing all year, although Milwaukee emerged as the superior team, and I think rightfully so. Boston was excellent throughout, especially the early portion of the season. Had a couple of periods of time where they floundered a little bit and made you think that they were more suspect than their record would indicate. But still, I mean, an outstanding year all the way around, and they finished second. And Philadelphia winds up third. Now, it would make sense with that pecking order that the most vulnerable team would be the third-place team, the Philadelphia 76ers. But because of their, Joel Embiid has had a lot of misfortune, including getting injured in the postseason. And that was with the great Doc Rivers. Remember, Doc Rivers left Embiid in a game that they were up by 50 with like 30 seconds to go, and that's when he rolled his ankle. And you're thinking, if ever there was a time where you blame a coach for just outright and utter stupidity and could blame a coach for a guy getting hurt, that was the time, was it not?
Yes.
Because I normally don't buy it. You have coaches, guys get hurt. It happens. I mean, Kevin Durant, right? He's in warm-ups, man, and some schlep won't go out there and roll out there with a towel. He sees a bunch of schwitz on the floor. And, here's Kevin Durant, this new acquisition at great expense that's going to put the Phoenix Suns over the top. And next thing you know, he's in a slip and fall. He's calling Amanda Demanda and saying, can you believe these clowns left the court that wet on warm-ups? Unbelievable. And what was that worth overall? It didn't cost Durant any money, but it probably cost Phoenix a few games. And they seem to be invincible with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in the lineup together. Sorry, with apologies to Mike Lubie Lubitz. And, the fact that he was obsessed with the idea that, you know what, we love Justice Winslow. I should let you off the hook on that. No, I mean, a lot of people would have made that same mistake. It's unfortunate, but it does get back. And, Grant Long was with us on this 1,000%. That how is it possible for scouts in every sport, especially South Florida scouts, to be so, to put it bluntly, so fucking blind?
Yeah. Yep.
Baseball, how do you miss on everybody, every prospect? You're drafting, in the top 10 year after year after year after year, and you can't find anybody who can play this game? It's insane, Lubie. What are these people looking at? And we see it all the time, right? There was a guy with a mock draft today that had, who's this guy? Is it Levis? What's the guy's name?
Yeah.
The quarterback?
Kid who sucks.
What is it? Is it Will Levis?
Will Levis. It's horrendous.
Where did he come from? BYU or something?
He's Kentucky. You just said Kentucky. He played
Kentucky.
At Kentucky.
All right.
He's a big, strong kid who's horrendous.
I've seen clips of him.
It's horrendous.
Yeah, what do you see in there?
Big, strong kid. Josh, remember, they finally got away from that prototype bullshit.
Yeah.
They just wanted guys that were good and had ability. And then Josh Allen, who was out of Wyoming. Big, strong kid who can run, but is horrendously inaccurate. Was that for 2 years in the NFL. And then they surrounded him with talent and he got better. And he's actually still not as good as they want him to be, but he's good. Josh Allen's a legit quarterback. He's good. I don't think he's great, but he's good. And because he was able to sort of get better at accuracy, like, oh, good, we can go back to overdrafting athletic freaks who suck. And that's what they're doing in this draft.
Tim Couch, man. Unbelievable. I don't know. Did he distinguish himself that much? This guy's mock draft that I saw on CBS Sportsline today had Will Levis being taken first.
Yeah, stupid.
In the draft. That's
Levis
crazy.
and Richardson, dumb. The ascent they've made makes no sense to me.
Maybe he turns out to be the best guy, though. I wouldn't be adept enough at knowing his skills or lack thereof. It seems to me that came out of nowhere. This Richardson thing with Florida, at least you could make a case that you do have a freak athlete.
Yes,
and especially a guy like John. I saw another mock draft where Las Vegas somehow, I guess at the third pick, Las Vegas trades in there with Josh McDaniels. And, ends up taking Richardson from Florida.
Yeah, that's worked for him well, trading up to take Florida
Right,
quarterbacks.
to take a Gator quarterback that was a sensation. I mean, he wasn't even really a sensational college player, although you would have to say, I mean, a very tempting guy to try and project as being better than he really is. I mean, the fact that he, it may be Vinny Testaverde colorblind, but when it comes to throwing a ball to the other team, and those Gator uniforms are easy to pick out, are they not? I mean, they are gaudy loud, whether they're wearing the orange or the blue, are they not? How could you miss your Gator receivers being out there in pass patterns and routinely throw the ball to the other team?
Yes, he's bad. He threw for 54%, 60% is average. He threw for 54%. When they have 3 guys on their line that are going to get drafted in the first 2 rounds. They have 2 of the best offensive linemen in the draft. So you can't tell me he was getting hit. He wasn't getting hit. He wasn't getting pressured. He's just horrendous. He's a physical freak. Okay, so
well, I mean, he's raw. You would say.
yeah. So you don't take that guy top 5. Top 5 has to
But
start.
running, I mean, just demon. This is a guy plus a power runner. I mean, it's not like he's Lamar Jackson or some of these other guys. Murray with Arizona who are like scramblers, and even Mahomes to a lesser extent. Although I don't know how much running around Mahomes is going to be doing in the future. What do you think? Does Andy Reid just put the clamp on that as if he was, was sinking his teeth into a rack of ribs at some Kansas City barbecue joint and saying, no more running if we can avoid it?
He'll do less.
What do you think?
You are who you are.
Yeah.
He's not a runner. He's a scrambler.
But Richardson is one of these guys that, I guess like Cam Newton many years ago that is capable of not only making, clever moves, but also just bowling people over.
Yes, he's a big, strong kid. He's really fast. He has a big arm. And if he was a tight end, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
He's a quarterback.
Cam Newton didn't last long at that level, though.
And and Cam Newton was actually better than Richardson. Like
Yeah.
Cam Newton wasn't completing 54%. Like Richardson went games plural without touchdowns. Like plural. Like you could be the worst quarterback. They're playing Vanderbilt. They play a very soft schedule outside of their like 4 SEC teams that are good that they play. And he was not good. Like he's not a good quarterback. He's a athletic freak that you take a flyer on in the second round, and maybe look, even Lamar Jackson, who was the athletic freak, went late first.
Yeah.
Like, because
he was the last pick.
You don't know if it'll translate because the NFL.
Well, you didn't know if he could throw, and you still don't.
But he was better. He was better as a passer than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Yes, I mean he's not terrible, but he certainly isn't prototypical when it comes to passing the ball. I mean, you don't think of the classic. Even Peyton Manning wasn't prototypical, but wow, he was very clever and accurate with that. All right, Brian Mahoney going to join us here shortly. Lubie's going to connect with him, and we'll get into some baskets here. But I mean, are mock drafts just put out there to aggravate the general football public?
Yes.
Is there somebody out there that is known to have an especially credible mock draft every year? Kind of like, does Mel Kiper come close on his mock drafts? What about McShay? See, putting out mock drafts that you look at and you go, my God, I mean, you couldn't anticipate every move, obviously, because teams trade and, different needs may apply. But you certainly came close to capturing what was likely to happen in the first round. I just, I would always wait every year when doing draft coverage, for the pick that would come that would just stun everybody, including like Drew Rosenhaus, who'd be guesting with us on the program. And, he would say, what? The Dolphins took Tim Bowens? What a bum. And later that night,
he's representing him.
He's on like Sports, Center. And, he's got his arm around Tim Bowens going, my man. Went way further down the draft than we had ever anticipated. All right, joining us right now, a guy who knows about NBA drafts and certainly everything that pertains to the National Basketball Association, including a couple of teams that are playoff bound in New York, the Nets and the Knicks. From the Associated Press, our good friend Brian Mahoney joins us here on the show. Brian, thanks for joining us. Always appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, my friend. There haven't been any mistakes made in the NBA draft, have there? Because we were just, as you were coming on, we ended up on a tangential journey around mock drafts in the NFL. But it seems to me, I mean, when you make a mistake, and we were talking the other day with a friend of ours, Scoop Skolnick, you may know, Ethan Scoop Skolnick, who used to cover the Heat very extensively and has been around the NBA for a while. I think even with, what was the...
Bleacher Report. He was a national Bleacher
Bleacher Report. Yeah. He was doing stuff. And he was saying that there have been so many busts at the number one overall pick in the NBA draft, uncharacteristically so. That maybe outside of Wemby being available this year in a lot of drafts, there is no clear cut number one guy, and oftentimes the teams with that top pick end up blowing it anyway.
I mean, it seems like this year is a can't miss, but there's been quite a few years where, yes, we get all hyped for guys, and then you watch them play 2 or 3 years in, you're like, why did they pick that guy? And not even, I mean, obviously, the most probably famous one is not a one pick, but in the LeBron draft, where then you had right after Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade, and in between the Pistons picked Darko Milicic, and you're saying, how did you miss the great players right beyond him? So it happens more than we would like to see, unfortunately.
Yeah, Joe Dumars was face down in a frozen Lake Michigan after tainted an otherwise brilliant career in the front office, and then things really began to crumble there. And I don't know that it's corrected itself since. All right, we witnessed something last night as mysterious as the Bermuda Triangle, and or anybody that has disappeared in that direction, including at one time a Miami Heat player. I mean. Did you catch this game last night with the Heat and the Atlanta Hawks? If anything, we've been mentioning that the Hawks, seem to be at a very dysfunctional state. We compared them to the Mayweather family, and they even put out. You would have thought this might have come from Pat Riley's publicity machine. That the Hawks are open to talks for Trae Young. Right before the game is a little psychological warfare. And yet it was them. They said, hey, look, we'll trade this kid. We don't give a flying one about Trae Young. And then they go out there and pound the Miami Heat. And literally, what happened? I mean, how can you account for this discrepancy in terms of effort, which is evidenced by a 63-29 rebounding advantage for the Atlanta Hawks in this game against Miami last night? What does it say to our poor Heat fan base down here in South Florida?
Well, it's been, there's been way too many times it's happened with Miami last year, where they obviously are way better than, now a number 8 seed if they win Friday. But this is a team that should be much higher than they are, but they just kind of have these clunkers. And, Atlanta was a team when, as you say, you're waiting for the season to end, and then you start trading, and all of a sudden they go out and play with inspired effort last night, and every time they miss, they need a key rebound, go get it. Real surprising to see that happen. And, obviously Miami gets another shot, but they shouldn't have needed it. They should have just gone and won that game at home last night.
You would think. I don't know. I mean, probably they were jinxed. Worse than the curse of Rachel Nichols is us on the program here, Lubie and me, thinking, oh, yeah, they should win this one pretty handily. No problem whatsoever. And our debate was, do you lay the 4 and a hook? And yes. It turned out, we weren't expecting the team to go out there and lay an egg like that. Many people think, Brian Mahoney, that the Heat roster has them in a position where they're relatively snookered. That, whatever we saw this year, you'll probably see it perpetuate itself into the next season at least, because they don't have any cap space. They don't really have, I don't think, tradable commodities there. Although, what was there a reason that Kyle Lowry woke up? Does he want to go play for the Phoenix Suns or something? I mean, that was the only positive thing that developed in that ballgame. Otherwise, it looks like the Heat are kind of stuck in a little bit of a stagnant place where, the prospects for next year wouldn't be that bright.
Well, they always kind of find a way to get themselves involved, and if guys want to be traded, somehow Miami always ends up on our list. It's a place people want to go to, and it's a respected organization. So, somebody's going to ask out somewhere, and it's a matter of then, do you have a trade package? And as you say, they don't have a ton of great assets. There's not a lot of things off the top of their head. You can say, okay, they have picks they can trade, or this and that, or great young players, but. I never rule them out. Obviously, they Pat Riley finds a way more often than not. So, but it's certainly not. If you line everyone up right now in the NBA, you don't look at them as their current state and say this is a team that's in a great situation going forward. They have to find a way out of it.
Well, Brian, you covered the NBA a long time. You're out of the Northeast, New York area. You primarily focus on the Knicks and the Nets, but you do cover the NBA at large. Look, the two franchises you're tied to a lot are franchises that have in the draft drafted the guy that was supposed to be good that fell back. What I find most curious about the Heat is the opposite. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero were late lottery picks that usually fail in the NBA. I mean, those are picks that are not guaranteed, and both have succeeded expectations from where they were drafted. But what's weird is they both got to a place where you're like, wow, they're stars now. What could they be? And then they've gone backwards, which I find rare. Usually when you see a guy hit a certain place, they stay there, if not get better. Bam Adebayo in particular was averaging pretty much 21 and 10 going into the All-Star break. He was, a lot of people considered a top 3 big man in the NBA. Since the All-Star break, the guy, I think he's like 15 and 8, and last night was 12 and 9 versus a Sixers team that is not big, that is not imposing, that is not physical. Like, as a guy who's covered the NBA a long time, isn't that strange to see a guy who hits a certain place and then in the same season regresses?
It was weird, a little bit, for sure. Like, and he didn't have a great night at all. I mean, Capella killed him last night.
Yep.
That was just a real poor effort for an all-star type player. So surprising. You never know why that stuff happens. Whether the guy just had a bad night, whether he's having a bad couple weeks, whatever it is. But certainly a bad time for it to happen. And you're right. You kind of, with him in here or both, you kind of expect, yes, these guys are borderline going to be stars and keep becoming bigger stars. But certainly it wasn't there last night. It wasn't there often enough this whole season.
All right, tonight we have the game that will decide who the Heat face if they're going to make the postseason. Which is this considered? It has to be considered postseason, right, Brian? Or is this a separate category? These playing games?
We're still figuring out. It's only been a couple of years now that the stats don't really count as postseason stats.
Yeah, I mean, what is it that we're witnessing?
It's purgatory. In the NBA.
Yeah. All right, Lubie implied that he knew a guy who threw another guy. Found out that maybe Nick Nurse was sitting on the Ed Ogeron hot seat. That seems improbable to me. How would you assess Toronto and the Chicago Bulls, who unfortunately, the bad news for Heat fans, as Lubie researched, they were combined 1-6 against those two teams. The Raptors at home favored tonight. I seem to recall them playing some decent basketball in spells this year. I mean, how do you size up this game tonight, and which of those two teams, would have a better chance of making a move into the playoffs?
I mean, they're both teams who probably should be better off than they are. Chicago has never really gotten over, Lonzo Ball not being able to get healthy, and it's been a big. But certainly when if Levine and DeRozan get going, that's a team that can score a lot. And Toronto is they got some big guys on the wings, obviously with Scotty Barnes and Siakam. And if you're looking at a team that gets killed on the boards like Miami did last night, you don't want to play a team like that who goes and gets the ball the way they can. So. Either team, neither one should have been a 9 or 10 seed, I don't think, and either one has a chance to put together a couple of games here in the next couple of days and find themselves in the playoffs.
Knicks fans are pretty giddy about the season they had, and yet it seems like they face a rather imposing challenge even in the first round. As they seemed so thrilled that they clinched. The New York media, I get the Post every day, and the impression I got was, wow, they were thrilled to get that 5th seed locked up. And that put them in a spot there where they face the Cavaliers, who may be the weakest of the top 4. Obviously, by one-loss statistics they are. But how much of a challenge is that for the Knicks? And are Knicks fans and the New York media, are they somewhat delusional about how good the Knicks are this year?
Well, we haven't had many good seasons up here, so
yeah.
When we good one, yeah, it's going right to the top. But no, I think it's a good team. The Knicks, I think it's. I would give them a shot to win, but I think Cleveland's really good. And obviously, Donovan Mitchell's had some incredible postseason games in Utah, and now we'll see what he does here in Cleveland. But that's a big front line with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, and Julius Randle, has been hurt, so we're not sure if he's going to be able to play, how effective he can be if he does play. So, I wouldn't pick the Knicks to win this series, but I think it could be a very, very good series. I like both teams. I think they've both had a nice season.
All right, and the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, remarkable that Jacques Vaughn was able to take a team that was completely decomposed, in terms especially of, what they thought was going to be, the foundation of the team and the main impetus behind any success they would have with Kyrie Irving and Durant. And then with a completely different bunch of guys, almost like you got like a new group of players from the Y to be the Washington Generals. They go out there and maintain that sixth position, which gives them an opportunity to face off against the Philadelphia 76ers. What chance in any do you give the Nets in the series? And I guess, as you were looking at the top three teams in the Eastern Conference, are the 76ers not the most vulnerable of those three teams?
Yeah, I think the 76ers are a little step behind, obviously, Milwaukee and Boston. I think, I think I don't give them a title chance as well as those two teams, but I do think they're better than the Nets, obviously. And, the Nets, it's a nice regular season team. They played way above themselves after those trades, as you say. And, they brought in 4 starters. They became a pretty good defensive team. And they found a way offensively more often than not. But, in the playoffs, having to beat someone 4 times, that's just when the superstars kind of take over. And, the 76ers have a couple of them with Embiid and Harden, and the Nets don't right now. So I think this is a Philly win, but credit to the Nets for not caving on a season that could have gone really, really sideways.
Brian Mahoney of the Associated Press with us here on the show, and always good to talk basketball with him as we're on the precipice here of the playoffs. The Lakers look to be in some very dark water and deep water last night. It was almost like they dove into the Hudson River. Only the West Coast version. I mean, they're down 15 to Minnesota. Minnesota, with Gobert suspended. By the way, how weird was that to see the incident itself occur, and then Minnesota? I guess the team suspended Gobert for the game. I'm not sure if the league was going to issue a suspension for that move, but they go in there without Gobert, and they're up 15, and they end up losing a ball game. And the Lakers get the chance to face the Memphis Grizzlies, who are, in a little bit of psychological disarray with the whole Jean Morant thing. What do you see there? I've been telling Lubie, Brian, all year long not to sleep on the Lakers. I'm not sure if I believe it anymore, but what do you make of that whole theory that the Lakers might be formidable as they now roll into the postseason?
No, it's funny. Obviously people get so sick of the Lakers being overcovered all season long.
Yeah.
And it's a good team. And then, sometime around 2 weeks ago, we started saying, you know what, they're not bad.
Yeah.
Right.
David Davis, LeBron are awesome. That. The trades they made at the deadline were good trades. They definitely got better. They defend way, way better. So I'm not ruling them out at all. Last night was sort of their whole season. They got off to a terrible start. They looked like they're dead. And then, they find a way toward the end. So, Memphis has, a couple injuries here and there. And obviously they lost some momentum when Morant was out. So they're not a powerhouse and they don't have a ton of experience. So it'll be interesting if the Lakers can sort of put together, a great run at this year.
Yeah, and you have also. As wide open as the East appears to be, although you're thinking it probably boils down to, one of the top 3 teams there. As demonstrated throughout the season, they were, just better than the other teams in the division. With all due respect to the Cavaliers, but it seems wide open. I know Denver was a top team there, but when you look at the Phoenix Suns after the Durant acquisition, and when they've had Durant in the lineup, they've been unbeatable. But they face a pretty tough challenge. Although without Paul George, obviously the Clippers are compromised. But do you see the Suns emerging out of the West? With Durant, imposing himself as the force that he's capable of, and all of a sudden, people maybe get off his back a little bit about how he doesn't make a difference, unless he's with a team that's already dynamite to begin with.
Right. It's a good question because, Denver has sort of faded a little bit toward the end. I would have still picked Denver going into it, a couple weeks ago, but now I'm not sure. And as you say, Phoenix hasn't lost when Durant plays. It's a small sample size. I get that. But the bottom line is when you win every single game with a certain lineup, it's hard to pick against them. So it'll be really neat. Obviously Paul George still being hurt for the Clippers. You would think that gives the Suns a good chance. And then, having to play Denver in the second round would be really, really interesting. Either one of those teams would have a, terrific reason to think they could win the whole thing by then.
All right. Any teams that you see as, not necessarily sleeper contenders, but, certainly not, the teams that we've touched on already. I guess we covered a lot of the East, but what do you see shaping up out of all of this? We know the NBA, Brian Mahoney, is a chalk league. What do you see emerging as the playoffs evolve?
Well, the interesting one, I guess, is do you believe in a 6 seed by the name of Golden State Warriors?
Yeah.
Obviously, it is a chalk league more often than not, but can you win 3 rounds as a lower seed? Would be really, really interesting to see. They sort of got themselves together at the end of the season, like they said they would, but we'll see. You have to, do it now in a terrible situation to come out of. We'll see if they can do it.
All right. Excellent stuff as always, Brian. We look forward to talking to you again, hopefully, as the playoffs progress. I guess they're going to go on, into July. So we should have plenty of time to connect with you. And hopefully we can impose on you for some more of your time. Thanks so much for being with us. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Brian Mahoney, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to ask him about, that schwitz on the court there where Kevin Durant went down. How do you allow that to happen if you're like a towel boy? Right? We talked about this the other day, right? It doesn't matter what your job is. Do it to the best of your abilities, right? You can't allow that schwitz to be on the court, can you, Lubie? Lose a star player like that while he's doing like a meaningless, nothing layup drill. It wasn't like he was rolling in there for a dunk over a Carmen Gia and, a couple of tall, teammates of his. He's just standing there in the court, and all of a sudden, schwitz is out, and there he is on the ground in agony and out for a couple of weeks, like 3 weeks. All right, coming back with Craig Minervini. We'll get into this whole thing. I will see. Craig is a diehard baseball guy. And, I would imagine somewhat of a baseball purist going all the way back to his days where he developed the impression of Bob Murphy, the Mets announcer. And, I'm with Lubie. You have never been more accurate on something than talking about, while it's a nice statistical anomaly, as you were calling it, statistical anomaly, it's not as meaningful as, if the guy had hit a game-winning home run in that spot and failed to hit for the cycle.
Yes.
So, and like I said, I don't know that I would remember seeing somebody hit for the cycle, but I do remember Jim Bunning's perfect game and, other no-hitters that I've, had the pleasure to witness. You always remember that, right? Hey, Nolan, you going to throw a no-no tonight? Every time Nolan Ryan took the hill, we figured there's a good chance we might see a no-hitter. Right? We're waiting over-under on when it was going to get busted up, if at all. All right, back with Craig Minervini in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:50. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
We need about 20 seconds of Marv. He's supposedly considering hanging it up. You were paid a compliment from Harvey Fialkoff. He says that you, hands down, do the best Marv Albert
Goldie
of
does a good
anybody
Marv.
in South Florida.
Well,
Thank us as Marv Albert. That would be great.
Well, I have only one answer to that, and it is yes. It has always been a pleasure to be at either the 7th Avenue end to the left of Ed Jockerman or the 8th Avenue end to the right of Billy Smith or Willis Reed, who may come back. You know, Defo and Lubie, Willis did come back in a heroic fashion, but once I hang it up, that will be it. Now back to Chuck and Sue.
Excellent job there as Marv Albert. Craig Minervini.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
We always love it on the Defo show. We can rouse this man out of bed at an early. Wow, and on video too. This is very daring on your part, Craig Minervini.
Very daring.
How are you, my friend? You look
See,
great,
the
by the
old
way.
cop-
What are you wearing there?
Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, you're
Yeah, you sound great.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know that I
Brothers-
can read the shirt.
Old comedy club, the East Side Comedy Club, where I used to work
Oh, yeah?
as a kid, where Kevin James started, Jerry Seinfeld, Ray Romano. I mean, the dishwasher became what's the great producer? He's the husband of Judd Apatow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, two of the bartenders became Kevin James' manager and Tim Allen's manager. So it was a great spot to work with all the comedians working in there, Jay Leno and so on. A small club, but did a lot of business. Anyway, good to be on so early with you guys.
No, it's great. I mean, I'm amazed. I was not expecting the video portion to be part of
Absolutely.
the package here today because it'll help because we had an oddball request. I mean, I don't know if you were ever called upon in your days hanging around the comedy club to do some of your impressions. Of course, we just replayed one of your Marv Alberts.
Yes.
But my favorite impression that you do is Bob Murphy, relatively obscure, and it might be rare, that somebody would say, "Hey, instead of bringing up Robin Williams, we're going to bring up Craig Minervini. He's going to do his Bob Murphy impression." Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for your featured act.
Well,
But
Defo, the Met
we had a.
The Met
Go ahead.
yearbook is now on sale. 64 pages in full color. All the pictures are suitable for framing. It'll go great in your baseball library.
Well, we had an oddball request for a variation on a theme here because our friend Andy wanted to know if instead of doing an impression of Bob Murphy doing baseball, which you do so brilliantly there, referencing the yearbook and the suitable for framing picture, that maybe you could do Bob Murphy doing Bowling for Dollars, which he also hosted, which was a distinction that the great
Yes.
Chick Hearn also
Right.
held.
Defo,
Yeah,
we have a pin
Bowling
pal.
for Dollars.
And let's see, Juan will be playing for Conchita Martinez in Flushing, Queens, New York. And if he bowls a strike, she'll get $5 and a gift certificate to the nearby friendlies.
See, now that's classic. I doubt that that'll be done on any other sports media, or medium today, whether it was streaming TV. You're not going to see that on the Stephen A. Smith show. That's for sure. All right, we've been having this debate, and I think we came to the conclusion that while it's kind of a cool thing that a guy hits for the cycle, is it a baseball distinction that is worthy of the type of accolades that it's drawing here? As Luis Ariz, who looks like Ron Carew, by the way, out there, and you were broadcasting the game last night. I mean,
Yes.
you were on the post game show and the pregame show, and I mean, how much of a big deal is it?
it's
I
a
mean,
big
it was just
deal.
weird that the Marlins never had one, but
Yeah.
does it equate out with a no hitter, or maybe he hits crushes a game winning home run in that spot instead of getting the single to complete the cycle?
Yeah, I'd say it is because it's more rare. It's just it's an oddity. I agree. It's a crazy. Yeah, would you rather the guy hit 4 homers instead of homer, triple, double? I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it's so odd. We've been talking about this. It's almost ad nauseum. How many years? Oh, he was a double
Yes.
shy of the cycle. He was
30
a triple
years.
shy. 264 times the Marlins were 1 hit away from the cycle.
Oh, wow.
Wow, you
Only
had that
4
stat.
times has there been a single shy of the cycle. Gary Sheffield, Josh Willingham, Dan Ugla, and Omar Infante, the last of
Wow.
2012. So it's one of those interesting things about a franchise. Marlins have had 5 no-hitters, something like that. Never had a
Yes.
cycle. So it's exciting. The guy's hitting 537. I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's been great.
And it was dramatic. Is he going to get a single? Is he going to trip over first base? Stay on the base if he doubles? Who knows? But it's been fun to watch. It was fun.
Yeah. This team any good? I mean, what do you think, Craig? Honestly, 5-7 now. We've seen some things, and yet some of the usual problems persist, as in a couple of these, and we were, kind of critical of these Kim Eng acquisitions that seem to have bombed. I mean, Jacob Stallings. Hobie Landreth just checked out, and I think he still could hit better than Jacob Stallings. Avisail Garcia's been a bust. Soler is hitting like under the Mendoza line, and wasn't all that good last year. Is this team any good? What should the fans be looking forward to if they're going to be optimistic about it?
I think they're showing some potential offensively. Obviously, they've struggled. They only have 7 runs or something in 12 games, but they have scored 18 in the last 3. And so that
Okay,
I like
signs of
I
life.
like some signs I'm seeing. They've got hitters. This guy Arise. We haven't seen a guy like this since I don't know Juan Pierre, Luis Castillo.
He's great. Yeah.
I mean, the way he hits is great. I kind of like Jazz in that leadoff spot as well. I'm not sure if Arise stays third. Probably. I like Jazz running a little bit. Yes, Garcia's been off to a bad start this year again. Soler, look, I can live with 220 from him, driving some runs. And he's hit 3 homers.
Holy Dave Kingman.
Dave Kingman, Schwarber over there, 46 homers and struck out 200 times last year.
Yeah.
Dave Kingman would be paid, $40 million right now.
He'd be Mike Trout.
And by the way, it's not Dave, it's David Arthur Kingman. Here's Sky King. Oh boy, when he comes up, you cannot leave your chair. And a high fly ball, deep. There it goes, a home run. Arthur Kingman.
Is this the only show that welcomes your Bob Murphy impression? I mean, do people even know that
Nobody
you have
knows
this
Bob
in your
Murphy,
repertoire?
Yeah. Broadcaster. So I think that, look, it's early. They're in a tough division. They played the Mets, Twins, and Phillies. Not an easy schedule out of the gate. Nothing away from the Rays. I mean, they're unbelievable, one of the great starts ever. But they have had easier. So we'll see as it goes. Baseball's a fun sport that way, but they're starting to find their identity. I'll say that.
Look,
and good pitching.
Well, as frustrating as I was with the first few games where they couldn't hit themselves out of a wet paper bag, they have woken up, and you're seeing some prominence there. And Luzardo is everything everyone thought he could be. The positive thing I'm seeing from South Florida sports right now, it ain't the Heat, and the Marlins are finding the way. It's your Panthers. For 3/4 of the year, we're waiting for them to wake up and be the team we saw last year. Kachuk, they have won that trade. He literally has double the points of Huberdeau from last year, and he's like 4 or 5 years younger, which is amazing.
Yeah, but
they couldn't get themselves out of their own way. They just couldn't. They make the move to Lyon. Maurice finally shows that, as people like to call him, he's not the French Joe Philbin, and he yells at
the French Joe Philbin
to literally light a fire under them. It's not proverbial. I mean, you see their play is what we thought they would be all year, and they're playing as well as anyone in hockey right now. They are playing really strong hockey.
Yeah,
clinched last night. What have you seen different from the team the last month or so as opposed to the 2-3 months before that?
Yeah, they're getting great goaltending. Alex Lyon, he's been unbelievable. Even Bob had a nice run before he got hurt. That's probably number one. It starts because it gives you a chance. They're also, I don't think they're allowing the quality opportunities they were allowing early in the year. I mean, you could put Defo and Lubie, both of you, in the net at the same time, and if you give up great opportunities, the All-Star game, you're going to give up goals.
Yeah.
I'm a goalie dad too, so I know because my son played goalie, and it used to drive me crazy, when you always blame the goalie. But that is the fact in the NHL. You got to get great goaltending. The power play's been excellent. You mentioned Kachuk. They've gotten some other guys, Lostereinen's 18 goals or whatever he's got. They've been getting other guys to contribute, and they got some mojo. I think what you said, Lubie, they've started to say, hey, we can win. It's interesting. I'm going to the game Thursday night. I'm not working the game, and I was kind of hoping that it would mean the playoffs just to have the excitement, but then win and get in. So now it's about seeding. Carolina is going to be playing. It looks like their game's going to mean everything, either first place or second place. And it looks like the Panthers are just going to be, are they going to be the first wild card or the second wild card? Islanders host Montreal tonight. If the Islanders win that game, it's funny. I don't know if you guys looked at it closely, but it came down to, this is really weird. Had the Panthers gotten a point, let's go back 2 nights ago, 1 point extra, they would have clinched.
Oh,
right.
But because they didn't get 1 point 2 nights ago, 1 point tomorrow night would not have clinched had the Penguins won.
That's funny.
Wow.
Because it has to do with the regulation wins.
Yep.
The Islanders could have tied them in regulation wins and beat them in what they call regulation or overtime wins by 1 if the Islanders won their game, as it turns out, in regulation. So there's so many ifs. I love that part. I'm looking at schedules and what's if. But right now it's pretty simple. You win the game outright. You got the 7th seed. You're going to play Carolina, most likely, or New Jersey. Carolina plays the Panthers, so obviously you beat them. If Jersey were to beat Washington and the Panthers beat Carolina, they're going to play the New Jersey Devils, which I kind of think is because they're young. is maybe a better matchup, only because you don't know and they're not playoff tested. But you can avoid the Boston Bruins.
Yes, that would be nice.
Have set the all-time record with a major asterisk, however.
What does that mean?
Oh, they look like, I mean, as opposed to last year where you weren't sure how they were going to hold up in the playoffs after an outrageously good regular season.
Yeah.
Here they come in after, a regular season that was loaded with question marks and, as to how they could possibly be on the fringe of missing the playoffs all the way, as you said, right down to the last, couple of games. And yet come in there with enough momentum to make you think they could do something. You've been covering sports here in South Florida how long, Craig Manavini?
Well, you won't believe this. I moved to South Florida in 1989.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So,
and I worked for the TV station up in West Palm, and then I came down to Miami after that. So I've covered. I was at the first, all the announcements, Huizinga coming in with the baseball and hockey. I'm probably the only – I don't think there's anybody else around. I was in Quebec City for the Panthers draft. Me and my old pal, the late, great Rich Tucker, went up there, did one of those Defo schemes where we had 4 stations paying us money to go up to Quebec City, somehow rigged it out to make a couple of bucks on it. And, and we were in Quebec City, a beautiful place for that draft.
Well, and probably I think it set a ratings record here in South Florida with the coverage of that draft. But I bring this up because I wanted you to weigh in on something related to the Panthers and of course the Tkachuk deal for Huberdeau, and I forget who else they sent there, and I guess draft picks. But as long as you've been covering sports and you've been associated with, both the Panthers and the Marlins on a very
long time,
in-depth basis, and the Dolphins, of course, during your sports coverage as a TV guy,
right,
were a primary focal point, and the Miami Heat as well. Is this the biggest lopsided trade in favor of a South Florida team that you have seen in what would be your 34 years of covering sports here? Where, usually it's the South Florida team that is either giving away a player or getting hosed. And, and even getting hosed in spots where they are giving away a player, but they should accrue something back that was going to be meaningful to their future. And it usually ends up being, just absolutely a bust. I mean, holy Cameron Maben, what are we talking about here?
Right.
We'll give you Mickey, sure. But is this the most lopsided deal you've seen? I couldn't think of anything that approaches this.
I would say
the
one you just mentioned is the biggest going the other way to lose Cabrera and that deal and really not get much. They got Burke Badenhop and did a nice job out of the bullpen.
It was fun because
and so on. They got 6 guys there. That did not pay it out. Look, I think Huberdeau had a rough year last year. Huberdeau and Uyghur are good players. Huberdeau had over 100 points. He's not a Seth.
Yeah. He was great last year.
I think they picked up as much as Lubie mentioned. Tkachuk is 24, 25. They're going to have him for 8 years in all of his prime years.
Yep.
I think the problem for the Flames is they paid Jonathan Huberdeau to get him in his non-prime years, not necessarily right now. He didn't have a great year last year. Neither did this year. Also, him and the coach, Sutter, they weren't on the same page. I would assume Sutter's going to be gone, and I think that'll help Huberdeau. And Uyghur is a good player too. So it looks worse this year for the Flames, and I think it is, but it's an incredible trade for the Panthers. I liked it right. Wow. I liked it right when it happened because I like what this guy brings. They didn't have that. They're different animals, those 2 guys. Huberdeau's a playmaker. He makes other guys better. I didn't realize Tkachuk was as good a playmaker as he is, not to mention he seems like he scores, you don't even notice him, and all of a sudden he tips a puck in. He shoots from a crazy angle. He doesn't blaze down the ice. He's gritty. I mean, and he loves it. And he loves, you know what else? He loves South Florida.
Yeah, it feels like
you can feel it. There's a chemistry with the fans and
get
him.
the vibe. Yeah.
He's captain material. However, you have Barkov as your captain in a different way. Barkov's a sort of a different style captain. And if it works, that's fine. If someday Barkov says, you know what, I wouldn't mind wearing the A. It's no big deal. Clark Gillies did it with the Islanders. I remember Denny Poffin tell me, Clark Gillies, and I'm not saying Barkov doesn't like to wear the C, but I know in that case, Clark Gillies did not like to wear the C. And he went to Denny and the Islanders, and Denny became the captain. And so we'll see. But he's certainly a leader. He's been fun to watch.
All right, one more thing. You mentioned Bobrovsky was playing well. It had been somewhat of a mystery, unfortunately, again this year through much of the season. But after the All Star game, I guess he sort of rebounded and was finding his game again. You mentioned
Can
also
I
that.
ding the answer before the question? Ding, Alex.
Sure. Yeah.
Alex Lyon for
Yeah.
1,000, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Sticking with this kid.
Yeah,
Is
you
that the
have-
question?
How did this happen? I mean, this is a story out of nowhere. It's like Denny Doyle becoming a World Series MVP. Guy was a journeyman with like 37 games in 8 years in the NHL.
Opportunity. I remember when Jack McKean used to say, and he actually did this. He said Charlie Finley walked into the old A's locker room and said, "Gentlemen, when opportunity knocks, you got to open the door and say, come on in." And Jack did that great Charlie Finley impersonation. I think that's what it is. The guy just took advantage of an opportunity, and he's been great. How do you not go with Alex Lyon? I'm not saying, by the way, Bob's healthy. I'm not saying Alex Lyon gets beat even in game one. Let's say, for argument's sake, 5-1. Bob might start game two. You may need both guys, and Bob could be the guy you ride eventually anyway. But right now, you ride the hot guy, the guy who's gotten you there, I think. And I think it's got to be Alex Lyon that plays game one. But I don't know that.
Right,
I don't know that. We'll see.
When are you going to be releasing the secrets of your youth look program? I know we don't believe it's Botox, so
No
we're thinking
Botox.
it's
That was
something
my ex-wife's
like.
game, not me.
Are you going to Dr. Savant with Cindy Crawford or something, and squeezing like cantaloupe on your face? How are you doing it? You and Tommy Hutton both, but you especially. And Hutton, also, has suspicions that you're using artificial substances.
Do you know the Phillies PA announcer, Dan Baker, was the PA announcer when Tommy was playing for the Phillies? He's still there. And now,
Wow.
Phillies fans,
Yeah, he's great.
Howard. I love Dan Baker, and he looks great too.
Yeah.
No, it's lit. I moved to the beach.
Oh yeah, where you at?
I'm in Hallandale Beach.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
nice.
can hear the bugle guy in the morning.
Well, and every now and then you can get a discount on a suit on Schmonterow, I think, when you're down there. I think it still exists. So, if you want to dress down one day, that would be the way to
Absolutely,
go.
it'd be a good idea.
Great, we love you, man.
Hey.
I mean, it's looking good. That was great last night. We finally get off to Schneider with cycles, and and this guy is terrific. He's great to watch because he makes contact. He hits all fields. Hit a home run last night to the opposite field, and reminds me literally. I remember when I used to cover a lot of Angel games when Rod Carew got there late in his career, and was an integral part of some very good Angel teams. He sort of has a swing like Carew.
You know what? Something I didn't know about your career. When did you work in La La Land?
California, I was there from like 1974, and I probably got into the media in 75 till 1981.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. No, I covered a lot of Dodger, Angel games, all of the stuff there because I was at a schmaltzy little newspaper, in an offbeat town outside of L.A., and they let you, kind of freelance and do whatever you wanted. Yeah, but we covered all of the, the home games of the local teams. So, it was great, a variety of stuff that I got to do, during my brief period of time as a print journalist.
A lot of them come from there nowadays.
It was good. I mean, you know what? The sports experience out there was really good, and it was a kinder, gentler time in covering sports, Greg, as you know, where you would go to a Dodger game and tap Steve Garvey on the shoulder while he was about to go into the cage and say, "Hey, Steve, can I get a few minutes with you?" And he'd say, "Sure." Right after I'm done, he'd take 10 swings and go sit down in the dugout with you for a half an hour. I don't know if you're doing that today.
He's a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, too. I think him and Mattingly were the best first basemen. Keith Hernandez in their day. I think you got to count for the defense. And if a guy gets hurt, I got to judge him. I know Ralph Kiner only played 10 years, but he hit so many homers. If a guy gets hurt, I still got to judge him on how great he was. And when you're the best at your position for over a decade and your career's shortened a little bit, to me, when I watch a guy and I say, that guy's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Oh no, he was excellent, and he was a real gentleman out there. Yeah, I mean, he was banging every chick in town.
He did well off.
Yeah,
the
Popeye forearms. Yeah.
Kathy, what was her name? They were on TV together. His wife.
Yeah, they had pictures together suitable for framing.
Suitable for
great.
framing. By the way, order your Mets yearbook for $1.25 at Mets yearbook, Post Office Box 10, Shea Stadium, Flushing, New York. Use the zip code. That's 11368.
He does the face.
You remember, sports talk was in its infant stages back then. There was maybe like one sports talk show. The big debate when I was in LA, much like for many years, it was who's the better quarterback here, Marino or Montana. The big debate was who is the better shortstop, Bill Russell or Dave Concepcion. And they would get on the phone lines and go, let's go to Chico. And we got Juan. Juan, what do you think? Well, Bill Russell, I tell you what, you know him, man. And it would go on and on like that for days and years.
It's great.
I mean,
It's the beauty. You know what?
Which,
it's the beauty of sports and baseball in particular. You can argue about players because you look at stats and everybody thinks they know more than, you know, it's hard to analyze a left guard. It just is. But in baseball, you can, it's the beauty of the game. But I thought you guys were going to bring up the rules. I don't know how much time we have, but man, we played that 15-3 game, which was brutal the other night, in 2 hours and 29 minutes.
That's fine.
Yes.
It's been amazing. There are parts of me that like to see that the 8-second thing's bothersome. He's got to engage the pitcher. I think they could give you a break on that a little bit, but man, it doesn't feel overly rushed. It just feels right. So
yeah, I mean, when XFL games are taking longer, you know, that's exceptional. I like the pace. You know what? I was one of those, you know, throw the ball back and let's get back and just rear back and fire another one. You know, and I don't know, you know, the pace of games back, you know, even when it was old school stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you didn't have, you know, before pre-Tony La Russa, I guess it would be, where, you know, you had a dozen pitching changes every ball game, but you know, it wasn't uncommon for games to be like contested in 2 hours and a half.
The 3-batter rule is great. They put that in a couple of years ago for the relievers. That's awesome. Yeah. And, you know, the bigger bases, I don't know if they had to do that. Did you see the stolen bases are up? It's crazy how high.
Yeah.
That to me is a little gimmicky because the base is 4.5 inches closer to second base now. That seems a little crazy. Why could they have gone with a 16.5 inch or 17-inch base? But it's working. And if you like baseball, I think you like more of a stolen base, an infield single, guys moving around, a little more action, and less strike them out or homer. Because I love homers, but you know when you just strikeouts and homers, it's unless you're David Arthur Kingman.
Greg, you're the best, man. We enjoyed this immensely, and thank you so much. And you know, it looks like you got more work on your hands there with the Florida Panthers now, so that's fantastic. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lubie and Defo. Always fun to get up in the morning with you.
Yeah, you're a great American.
We love him. Many thanks.
Greg Minerini, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, he was on his game from the start.
He's always
the Comedy Club T-shirt and everything.
He's always great.
All right, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, 12 o'clock today on South Florida Live. Also, Let's Eat South Florida. And, you know, that's where more people are signing up every day. And it gives you great insight into all the good places. And I guess some of the rotten ones, too, to dine at and visit here in South Florida. It's real good. I've learned a lot from it. You know, just, you know, go with the consensus, I guess, right? And go with your gut. You always have to make your own decisions on these sort of things. You may like a place that everybody else hates, too. I mean, that's possible.
I also learned patience is good, understanding, consideration. I would never want to cite and bash restaurants, but I would go, oh, I'm never going to go there again. So I've learned to be a little bit more accepting of the restaurant and what could be going on that I'm not considering.
If I had a bad experience at a restaurant, I don't know that I have to recommend to everybody else never to go there again. I mean, it would have to be particularly horrifying.
Yeah.
For me, you know, I mean, you know, people may ask me about a place, you know, and I'll say, you know, I didn't have the best of times there, but, you know, I'm not going to discourage anybody from trying it themselves necessarily, unless, you know, it was really horrific. But people really jump on it. That they had one bad thing, you know, happen. Like they didn't get a water within 15 minutes. Not 15, but 5, you know. And they're like, oh, my God, I'll never go to that place again. I recommend none of you do. And then the negative people tend to pile on, don't they?
Yes.
It's like if somebody opened up a call and said, you know what, Dan Shula sucks, man. The game is passed him by. And you were doing a talk show, and we're like, whoa, Niagara Falls. Slowly he turned, step by step. And then all of a sudden you would be flooded with calls because somebody opened up the so-called can of worms and actually, you know, was critical of Shula. And I was like, yeah, you know, you've been shilling for Shula your whole career, Defo. Why don't you just I don't think we need to go that far.
Exactly.
All right, so you guys are going to be at Shenanigans today. I think due to inclement weather and a few things that I have to take care of this afternoon, I'm going to join you here from the man cave, if that's okay. What do you think?
Whatever you want to do.
It's more food for you guys down there. And Patrick Utter is going to be on the scene, and he always has a lot of good things to say. So yeah, I'll pop on here, from here, and get to my business that I have to attend to that I've been putting off for the last several days around town here this afternoon, and so that's coming up at 12 o'clock, and it's always great. Shenanigans in Dania, great place. Go out there and say hello to the guys. What are you going to be ordering today, Louis?
Still
What do you think?
Passover.
Oh, it's up to Mayo. It's pretty much up to Mayo.
I've gotten more specific in my orders because
You got to get like the mahi sandwich. Have you had one of those there?
I've had yeah. I want to stay away from sandwiches as I'm still observing Passover for another day.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, that's right. It's still on, right?
Wings. They have a bunch of different stuff. They have some salads that are interesting.
Yeah.
They have
grilled wings are outstanding.
What I
grilled
saw,
wings are
and I
great.
don't know if they do it still, but I saw online because I was doing research because I'm like, how can I eat? They do mahi fingers, and mahi fingers sounds very interesting. So I'm thinking,
oh, those are great. Yeah.
And try.
I've had a lot of seafood over the years. My many visits to Shenanigans, both locations, and always terrific. And at an extremely reasonable price. They're really a great place.
They do a great job.
So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun later on this afternoon. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox from Shenanigans,
12 o'clock,
and with me on my satellite location here in Lauderdale by the Sea. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. It was a lot of fun. We extended the show a little bit because Craig Minervini, not necessarily a morning guy. You can't blame him. Game was on late last night, and he gets up and does video with us, so that was sensational. Thank him and Brian Mahoney for joining us here on the program. And we will see you tomorrow at the Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge. Dave Gurgles Gurgley and a host of other things as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:19.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.